Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Rosemary.
Hey everyone, I'm Kaymyth.
Also joining us is Matt.
Hey, I'm Comatose.
Oh, well, I mean, you're looking great for that, so, that's good. Also joining us is Kadie.
Hello, Aeondine on the forums and Discord.
And lastly but not least, we have Ella.
Hey, I'm Rasarr.
Hi, and I am Chaos, and we are doing our third and final Lost Metal Reactions podcast. I've reclaimed my throne as hosting this show. Fell the usurper.
No fault of his own.
Yeah. Well, Fell's a master usurper, as we know. Yeah, that's right. Fell for admin. Yes.
Fell for admin.
Yeah, but we were gonna have Ben on here, but he got sick, so that's fine. So I'm always down to blab, but I've already said my piece. It's really about saying your piece about the Lost Metal, and so. Spoiler policy. Well, what are we doing here? So there will be full Cosmere spoilers. We will have a I imagine, very short non-spoiler section. Presumably you've already listened to two of these, maybe this is the first one you've clicked on. I don't know. We'll see. But then we'll quickly get on to spoilers for the Lost Metal. But our spoiler-free section, will might have Cosmere and previous Mistborn stuff, but no Lost Metal stuff there. But yeah, so why don't we get right into it and just say, non-spoilery wise, what did you think of the book? Let's start with Rosemary.
I liked it. It was a good book. You want me to get into more detail than that, though?
Yes.
I have zero experience in doing spoiler-free reviews, so I don't know that I can say much without a spoiler accidentally coming out of my mouth.
What if you, where would you place Lost Metal in Era 2? Like, rank them.
Don't you ask me to rank things. How dare you?
Rank them. How'd you like it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Was it 10 out of 10? What'd you think?
I mean, there were some aspects, there were some quibbles that I have with the book. I'll give it, an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
So that way I don't have to stack and tell you which of my adopted children are better than the others. No, I'll just give it a score.
Okay.
Just don't ask me to score anything else in the same time period.
Okay. Matt, rank the adopted children of Era 2.
No.
How'd you like it?
My spoiler-free opinions, I enjoyed the book as well. I think certain plot lines in it were my favorite of Era 2, and other parts were not. I think that's why it's hard for me to rank it compared to the other books, because, if it was just certain parts, it would be my favorite. I thought it did a good job of paying off a lot of the promises of the series. Missed a couple, but generally did a pretty good job of wrapping things up. And I liked some of the callbacks to the previous trilogy. It made me feel like emotionally a lot of the ways that Hero of Ages made me feel. Not quite the same. Those who know me know that I'm an Era 1 truther forever.
Truther? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that Brandon could have nailed 100% of everything, especially just given how the Cosmere in these books have evolved. Alloy of Law came out in 2011. So it's unusual, I think, for a series of this size and books of this length to be spread out as long as they have. Era 1 is obviously tighter, but he wrote those back to back. So, but overall, I thought it was fun. It does some fun things with the genre, and it was really nice to see the characters again. I missed these folks. So,
Kadie, what'd you think?
So I liked the book. I enjoyed it the whole way through, but I feel that my opinion of it is pretty heavily carried by the ending and by a certain plot line. and general elements in that plot line, and that the rest of it kind of just didn't hold up as well. And if those two things, the plot line and the ending, hadn't been as good or had been different, I might have a somewhat low opinion of this book. But those things kind of carry it up.
Oh, I'm so interested to hear which plotline. This could maybe be perhaps divisive, so I'm excited. Ella, what do you think?
Well, I'm more than happy to rank Era 2 books.
Yeah, me too.
Since
me
no
too.
one else seems to.
Rank them.
For me, this is probably my second favorite, like right after Bands of Mourning for me.
Ooh.
And though I don't know how spoiler-free this is, but I find it a really good Mistborn book and a very good Cosmere book. And I think it's much better at being the latter than the former.
I definitely want to talk about how it fits in among the other Era 2 books, so we'll definitely get to that. You've already heard me blab too much, so I'm just gonna skip me blabbing. I already did this. So let's get on into some spoilers, because this is really, really impossible to do anything. Writing spoiler-free reviews, very challenging. And clearly some other spoiler-free reviews that I've read online take spoiler-free a little more liberally than me. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know you could put that in there, but all right, cool. But let's just get on into it. So, Kadie, what plotline? I have to know.
It was Marasi's plotline with the Ghost Bloods. Basically, every Cosmere moment in this one and the ending were, and the Era 1 callbacks were what was making it work for me. The rest kind of didn't so much.
That's exactly where I'm at with this book as well, Kadie. Like that is exactly where I found the wax and wane. It just kind of spun a bit.
Yeah, it's normally characters are what carry books for me, but the characters in this one just didn't quite land as well. When they were interacting with each other, it was usually good, but their own internal character arcs and such didn't work as well for me. They weren't bad.
Including Wayne?
I liked the way his character arc ended. I was a little more uncertain at the start and going through it. And I think there were good ideas to it, and I don't hate it conceptually, but I think the way Brandon wrote it is not necessarily something that super clicks with me. Wayne reiterating that he's worthless all the time, and just that specific flavor of self-loathing and the things that he focused on, and the way that he went about having that character arc is not how I would have written it, which I think part of it is probably at the very beginning my expectations were a little bit off. I expected him to tackle more how he treated other people, specifically women and Renette and things like that. And in general, the way that he behaved a little more than I expected him to tackle his self-loathing over the man that he killed, which obviously is a really important thing. And I don't dislike that we went in that direction instead. But there was some, I wasn't expecting it. And so I was a little off the foot that we kind of tackled the other bits in the time skip, and we just came back to, oh, Wayne is cool now. That's fine. I liked it. I liked his conversation with Renette and Jaxie and things like that. But then we kind of went in a few directions that I wasn't expecting with him, and I ultimately liked the climax a lot. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I definitely had some issues with Wayne's arc as well, because, again, Brandon didn't dig into some of the things that I think really needed to be addressed. As Wayne, because I've long had this theory that a lot of the reason Wayne is so, to people the way he is because he's trying to get them to punish him, because he's like, well, I'm this terrible person, so I'm just going to put myself in the position, and maybe it's not even fully conscious, but he does this because he's trying to live up to his, certainty that he's not worthy. And I really wanted to see more of that come on, of maybe that realization of, maybe I don't have to be such an ass all the damn time. And I really, I was not thrilled with Wayne dying at the end, simply because, like, oh, it's the great, because that was telegraphed, like, so people were calling that in the first book. I mean, that Wayne is ultimately going to die, and I'm like, no. And then it was just like signposts in this book of, this character is slated for death, and
this is our goodbye. It's like, oh, okay, this is a very final goodbye. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's frustrating to me, because I feel like there was a lot more of growth that he needed to go through. And I wanted to see him learn to live with himself and get better at how he interacts with other people, because that's really what he needed to do. You're never going to get the forgiveness from the terrible thing you did, but maybe you need to work on being a better person in certain other ways. And everyone's just like, Wayne, you're awesome. Why do you hate yourself? Like, no, yes, in many ways, he is a hero, but he also has problems, and that's been a blind spot with Wax forever. And Harmony didn't help that either. And I wanted Wayne to get to a level of self-awareness that he just never quite made it to before he died. And like, maybe he'll go through some of that in whatever the Cosmere afterlife is, of him, having to sit down in front of the cosmic projector and unpack some of the stupid that he's done.
So I agree, I think, with what's been said. I typically, though, and have not been a Wayne fan. And this book, I actually didn't mind Wayne's parts, because I did think he was getting at least some accountability. Like the Renette and Jaxie conversation, I thought was vital. And also his recognition that him torturing himself was hurting Alliandry with the drop-offs, and him kind of recognizing that, oh, I'm putting my own self-loathing above other people's well-being was nice. His reconciliation with Steris, it would have been nice to have on camera, but they weren't really around each other this book. And Steris kind of alludes to it, how like they've grown on each other.
And I liked his little comment about how, that suggested that he includes Steris in the friends group, and how he flat out said to Wax, yeah, I was totally wrong about her.
Yeah.
That was great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually liked Wayne and Marasi a lot. And I was a little disappointed when they split up, but I was like, okay, this is the last Wax and Wayne book. You got to get Wax and Wayne back together to do their Wax and Wayne stuff. And like, that's not as much my favorite part of these books, but I was like, it makes sense why Brandon did that. Like, you gotta kind of do some callbacks to Alloy of Law and have them be the great tag team again.
Yeah, otherwise what's Wax even doing character-wise? Like, he's there as the foil for Wayne in this book, really.
Yeah, he is. Well, and Wayne, like, it's interesting because like Marasi, I feel like, had her big growth moment in Bands of Mourning, and this was mostly seeing her growth play out. Like, I don't think Marasi changed a lot over the course of this book, but she did, like, we just got to like see her we got to see her final evolution. And then the epilogue promised, oh, there's more evolution to come, which is great. Love Marasi. But it was cool to just see her kind of do her thing. But with Wayne was the character who was going through it this book. Steris to a lesser extent. But with Wayne, I think he did get some accountability. What I liked about him and Marasi is I did feel like Marasi calls Wayne on stuff, whereas Wax kind of just lets him get. Wax kind of has a blind spot for Wayne. And Wax and Wayne's kind of problematic dynamic of Wax being very permissive of Wayne and letting Wayne get away with everything, and Wayne putting Wax on a pedestal, like, that was never really unpacked. But again, this book was doing a lot of heavy lifting, and I think Brandon, knowing that Wayne was going to die this book, wanted to end with their relationship on a positive note. So there wasn't really real estate to have a breakdown in that particular relationship. But yeah, Wayne, I think I'm hesitant to say this. I think Wayne kind of won me over this book.
Same for me, Matt. Like legit. Wayne was better on a reread when I was rereading before getting this book. But Wayne was like, oh, good. This is exactly what I wanted. Fantastic.
Yeah, because I think I always knew his problematic behavior was tied to like personal issues. My issue with him was kind of more that no one would like, he was getting away with it. And I did feel like for the most part, they did at least lip service to not letting him get away with it in this book. And I did see some signs of like growth in him. His humor still isn't for me. Him kind of dying the hero's death was a bit of a like, oh, like I did like a D+ character growth, bare minimum, and now I get to go out as a hero. But the series is also ending. So this was like, for most of these characters, probably the last we're going to see of them anyway. So
yeah, I did like the clear implication that the partnership between Marasi and Wayne is much more functional than the one was between him and Wax. And Marasi has clearly been calling him out on stuff for the last 6 years. And there's definitely been some changes because of that. And I like that you can see that, but you know, I like what was there. I just wanted more and deeper. But obviously that would have made the book a lot longer. And
it's already a long book.
It's already long, yeah.
I will say the Wayne growth kind of, I wouldn't say it didn't work for me, but I felt very not strongly about it. I think I'm just cursed with spending too much time talking about Wayne here on the Shard, because a lot of what was being said about Wayne felt like a retreat of discussions that we had about Wayne already in between the two books. So it all felt a bit perfunctory, like here's a checklist of things that are problems with Wayne, so let's go down the list and fix them all. And so the whole like heroic sacrifice at the end was more like, it's the last Mistborn book in a series, someone's gotta die. And I guess the wheel of fortune spun and landed on Wayne.
Yeah.
And the ending with the statue joining to the list of heroes, slightly funny, I will say, just a little bit amusing.
I do feel like Brandon probably could have written that ending in a way that no one would have died. But then you would have had Wayne bouncing around the rest of his life as a Mistborn, and I'm not sure Scadrial would survive that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also liked Wayne dying, I also think had a good thing for Wax's character, because Wax is like the stereotypical like sacrifice everything to save the world. And so having Wayne be like, no, this is me, like I'm doing it, and pushing Wax off the boat, I felt was a good character moment for Wax to have, and kind of the finalization of some of Wax's arc. Like I think if it had been anyone else other than Wayne, it wouldn't have worked that way for Wax's arc. So that was nice.
It was a good heroic sacrifice. It just didn't make me feel much. Like I feel like I could have felt stronger about this.
Yeah, I will admit, like when I did my reread of the book yesterday, I'm sitting there and going like, the one point that actually got me to tear up at the book was when Marsh was talking about how many tries it took to make them get Vin's face right, and I'm like, oh.
Wait, did they mention specific tries to get her face right?
He's just like it took. He's like, it took an intervention to get her face right, and it's just like the fact that they had trouble with it, the fact that he, you know, obviously took it upon himself to make sure that it was right. It was
Hilarious.
That hurt me in the feels.
Kadie, Wayne, thoughts?
Wayne, thoughts? So I really liked the scenes that we got as well with Marasi calling him out and the Renette and Jaxie scene, which, oh, by the way, Renette and Jaxie, gay rights, woo! I liked what we got, but it very much felt to me like a start and something that would be built on more in the book. And then the book just kind of went a different direction with it. They're like talking about, hey, you need to face what you're doing with going to this girl every month, with going to Alliandry and facing her. And you need to kind of look at these things that you're not looking at about yourself, Wayne. And I'd never felt that something that the murder of that man all that time ago, I'd never felt like that was something he was trying to hide from himself or avoid, like Jaxie was talking about. That always felt like something he very much was aware of and very much hated himself for, as opposed to something that he needed to tackle and develop a bit more on the way that he interacted with others.
Yeah, it was more about how he used the girl to punish himself and didn't think about what kind of effect it had on her.
Yeah.
But I do kind of see how in some ways Brandon wrote himself onto a corner with the way he built Wayne's psychology in the earlier books. It's like that this is a difficult brain to put into introspective mode because his brain don't think like anybody else do.
Yeah, I really liked his death scene. I thought that was a great scene, but it was probably easily one of the best scenes of his character arc for me, because the rest of it kind of was just like, it was good, but it was like slightly off to the side of what I expected and what I thought he needed and what I thought would fit better. I don't know. That's not me saying I could have done it better than Brandon. I think Brandon did a good job, but
you can still have issues with something you like.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I still think the biggest piece of it that bothers me is the fact that I wanted Wayne to be to a point where he was ready to live and ready to do better, and accepted himself as someone who deserved to have a life, and then still be able to sacrifice that. I wanted there's still sort of this cheapness to the sacrifice of how he devalued himself for so long that of course he would be the one, but I wanted to see that mean something more, for him to be to the point where he's like, I would really like to live out my life and see what kind of person I could be, but everyone needs saving, so I'm going to do what needs to be done. That was the big piece that was missing for me.
Okay, Rosemary, I'll put you down for the Wayne podcast. We'll do one eventually, pretty soon. So, all right, cool. I'll put you down.
I wasn't aware I was auditioning.
Yeah,
you are now.
To Alice's point though, about Wayne being very expected, I think generally speaking, that's something. One of the realities this book kind of was struggling with is it's been over 6 years since the last book came out. And so there were a lot of elements, I think, especially in like fan spaces, that have been discussed ad nauseum. And we've had a lot of time to go over and over these books. So yeah, I definitely think it's harder for Brandon to surprise us finishing a series like this one when it's been on the books for so long.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Since Kadie brought it up, can I just note the Ronette and Jaxie? I think this is the first time in the Cosmere we saw both halves of a same-sex couple be a couple together on page.
That's
like we had the couple in Stormlight one but they both get to be present on page but never together. And then the other characters we know are queer, we're not like in relationships. So congratulations, Ronette and Jaxie, you get to be the first.
We see Drew in like one scene in the background and never see him and Drehy together. Yeah,
exactly.
So
I'm sure we'll get more, but it is good.
Yeah.
For sure.
And Jaxie was lovely. Can I just say?
Yes, it's amazing. She's like the perfect balance for Renette.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Evidently better than Mithra.
Yeah.
Who is Renette's old girlfriend in the last book.
Yeah.
I completely forgot she already had a girlfriend in the previous books.
No.
Yeah,
This is a different person. Yeah, it's a different name. Cool. What other general spoiler thoughts do you guys have on things?
I will say I was hoping we would get more Southern Scadrians.
Uh-huh.
It's like Allik, for example, my best boy Allik, he disappears after part 1. Like, the way he like comes back at the end reminds me of like, you know how in like old-timey fables and stories, the knight sets out on a journey and the maiden says goodbye and then he comes back after the quest and she welcomes him. So it kind of felt like a gender-swapped version of that with Allik and Marasi. And then he just
big
vanished.
male wife energy.
He then just vanished from the plot. I'm not even sure if Marasi at all references him between the times when he isn't present, when he pops up at the start and the end. I'm not sure if he...
She sends a letter to him. She sends a radio transmission to him twice and maybe thinks about him once. And that was a problem for me too.
I was distracted then. And then, so Allik is just a non-entity in this book. And then the Southern Scadrians, like this Admiral Dal, gets this whole massive introduction when there's just an entire chapter dedicated to Wax going to visit his ship. And then it turns out that Dal isn't actually the Lost Metal character. He's Mistborn Era 3 character. Just popped in to say hello briefly and set up Era 3.
It is really weird that the start of the book is like, oh, the Southerners, there's something gonna happen. And then it's just like the whole stuff with the bands, and it's just like, that's the plot line in my review that just like went nowhere. Because it's just like to Era 3. I mean, it's not nowhere, it's going to Era 3. I get that. But
the bands of mourning were just so... It was so blatant that there was just this MacGuffin that we really needed to take out of the picture so the plot could happen.
Like, okay, go that way.
So the book could happen, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. It's a bit disappointing that the whole like Southern Scadrian side of the plot with Steris and Allik and this Admiral Dal wound up being what looks for now like just a whole bunch of setup for Era 3.
I agree with you on the Southern Scadrian stuff. I'm going to push back on the Allik a bit. I agree. I wish he was in it more as a character. I think Marasi, though, does think and reference him an appropriate amount, especially when you realize most of this book takes place within 24 hours. Like, from part 3, I think, onward, no one goes to sleep.
Oh, yeah. It feels like they arrived in Bilming and like the book ends the same day that they arrive in Bilming.
Yeah.
Like that's what it feels like.
Well, and Marasi talks about like getting back on the train. Yeah. So like, I thought she thought about him like an appropriate amount. And I liked him being her like little house husband. I was like, this is so domestic and cute.
It's pretty cute.
But obviously I would have been down for more Allik.
Yeah, I think I forgot about like the radio message and such because the scene then immediately jumped to like him and Moonlight, and so it kind of took over my attention.
Yeah, no, for sure.
There's a lot going on in the book. I think that is okay, and some of us have read the book a few times, so that's okay.
I have got to disagree with you, Matt. I'm sorry. I don't think there was enough Allik. Like, yeah, it only took place in a very short period of time, but still, if you've dated someone for 4 years that they've been dating, and before that they were flirting or something like that, like, you think about them in just offhanded ways, I feel like. I mean, I've never dated anyone for that long, but when I have been dating people, I think about them. I'm like, oh, she would totally like this, or oh, this person would enjoy this, or I wish that they were here to say this thing. Marasi had that moment with Wayne. She didn't have that moment with Allik, really, ever. She thought about him specifically when she was communicating to get him safe and out of the city, which was good. And there was like one other time, I think she said to Wax, I think that she wished he was here to talk to him and so she could have his baked goods or chocolate, which totally fair. That's great. I love that they have that. But it didn't feel to me like it's only in a day, but that's still a lot of words in the book that Marasi gets from her perspective. And I felt like there could have been just even just a couple more offhanded thoughts that she has about him that would have made their relationship feel real to me, because it didn't really. I was surprised by it in the beginning, even with the small hint of foreshadowing from before. And this is probably something that suffers from the book having a giant time skip at the front, where it's kind of just okay, now this is a relationship. Now this is a relationship. This is a thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. That's probably part of it. But part of it for me, I think I just was it was not enough for me. I'm like, Brandon, you can do better than this as a romance writer. I know we all joke about Brandon's romance, but I know that you can do better than this, in my opinion.
And I guess for me, she thinks about Allik. Books don't show what was communicated was enough for me to fill in the blanks to say she is thinking about Allik at other times.
Sure.
In similar veins. And Brandon only needed to communicate that. I kind of just surmised, she's going to have similar thoughts about, she references when someone asks her, I think, if she's happy with her life, she thinks about her career, and she thinks about her time with Allik. It was enough for me to communicate that he was on her mind, even if it wasn't made explicit at other points. But
when you're having a very stressful day, I don't know. It feels a bit appropriate to me. That's I need to deal with the end of the world right now. And I'm here to try and stop that. So that's kind of my main focus right now.
And
no, definitely.
Especially once the significant other is safe. It's this person is safe, so I can stop. That's one less thing for me to stress about.
Yeah, and I feel like a piece of this also is, Marasi is a well-trained and experienced constable. She knows how to compartmentalize her brain
that's true.
In order to deal with the crisis at hand. So I think it makes sense, given who Marasi is and what she's doing with her life, that she's not spending a whole lot of time thinking about him other than getting him safe so that she can focus.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I definitely don't expect her to think a lot about him. It just felt like he wasn't really there, I guess.
Yeah, and then the side thought about Wayne too makes sense, because she is used to Wayne being with her in these sorts of circumstances, and that is an expectation of, oh, right, he's not here right now.
Yes. I was not comparing the two situations, saying she had a romantic thing for Wayne. That's not what I was saying.
No.
Definitely no.
You know what I'm saying?
But I do think you have a point that obviously there's not a lot of depth to Marasi and Allik's relationship, and that's true. This book has so much to do, and there's a lot to do here. Speaking of, I do just want to make a quick comment. I realize that we're kind of getting into the weeds of complaining or just having issues. Again, we like the book, but I just wanted to say that you can like something and also have issues with it. And some YouTube comments I don't think understand that, and that's you can have a little nuance. I don't know. I didn't find it was a 10 out of 10. If you found it was a 10 out of 10, that's awesome. Okay, I want to make that super clear. You can both like something and listen to other people maybe have issues, and also if you like something and also have different issues, that's cool too. Put your issues and things you like below. We do need to get to some things that we like as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to say, I know a lot of us were sad to see Marasi turn down joining the Ghost Bloods, but I am so proud of my girl for having the strength of character to know that she is not okay with those stipulations, and to be able to turn something like that down. My God, she's amazing.
I have to say, I am so glad she didn't join the Ghostbloods. I was dreading her joining the Ghostbloods the whole book. So when she finally was like, no, I was so glad that didn't happen.
I mean, I wanted to see her do it just because I wanted to dig more into their secrets and see more, but also, and I see how tempting it was for her, and then how difficult it was for her to reconcile their rules with the way she feels like she needs to live her life. And I'm like, yes, you go, girl. You stick to your principles.
I really love that too. I like that. Like me as Matt, who likes Cosmere books, obviously would have loved for one of my favorite characters to join the Ghostbloods. Like that's a fun concept. But in terms of like in character, I thought it was played out really well with her. Well, because her struggle in the first book, right, is she reads about Wax and puts him on a pedestal and like wants to be like part of the stories, right? And Kelsier is like an even like more extreme example, like getting the chance to be in Kelsier's crew on Scadrial, like
that's
like how like that's like a bigger version of the exact thing that Marasi was struggling with, but all through, like you're seeing these telegraphs of like she likes solving mysteries, but that's not her primary goal of being a constable. She's not a constable because she likes solving mysteries. Like she likes helping people and likes making people's lives better. And she actually believes in a lot of like, due process, the law, like that sort of thing, which the Ghostbloods are more kind of the ends justify the means, which is, and you see that with Marasi all the time when she's like, hey, Wax, we don't need to break that window. We can wait 5 minutes and try knocking again. Like the Ghostbloods would absolutely break the window unless they had a reason not to. So I liked how her little character moments kind of telegraphed the decision, but it was still made it like very satisfying. And people saying no to Kelsier is fun as well.
Kadie, I know you have thoughts on this. A lot of thoughts.
I don't know about a lot of thoughts. I'm proud of Marasi for doing it, and I think it was a good decision in character. But I'm also like, man, I would totally have made the bad decision there and gone with them. It might have been absolutely terrible for me. I'm not sure if I would have lasted, but I would have done it. I'm pretty sure I would have done it. I even if I did think like,
yeah, I think Marasi as of Alloy of Law would have done it, but her development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So once you get older and wiser, I think I
haven't had my character development yet.
You're still young.
You're saying I'm still young.
You need a 6-year time jump, really.
Yes.
Yeah, I am really glad. Like the Ghostbloods felt so weird to me in this book. Like I liked the individual character, like Insol or Pransava. Is that his name?
Yeah,
Pransava. Yeah, he was excellent. Nice to see Shy again. I don't know much about Casey, but I guess she's nice and her nickname is excellent.
True.
But at the same time, like whenever they were on screen and like doing their best to recruit Marasi, I couldn't help but think about the other Ghostblood we've seen in the Cosmere. And I was like, I don't know how I reconcile, Shy and Prasanva and so on, and Mraze.
I think you get a big difference in Ghostbloods between who is working directly with Kelsier and who is outside of his direct sphere of influence.
Yeah, but I really don't like Mraze. That's the thing.
Notice, what's his name, who comes up in the end epilogue with Kelsier?
Dval, the Ealtel's sister, brother.
You
know what I mean?
Ealtel's brother. So if Ealtel is more similar to him, she's the one who trained Mraze. So you can see like the photocopier getting like darker, darker and darker. I think it's a lack of direct supervision. What I really liked about the Ghostbloods in this book, though, is I was getting a disconnect between how Kelsier ran his crew in Era 1 and how the Ghostbloods were being run in Rasarr. And this bridged the gap for me And I was like, okay, like he's still running the Ghost Bloods like he ran his crew, more or less. And then you can kind of see, though, he's spinning more plates, and his, like, Kelsier's strength is a tight-knit group. Like, even like his crew model in group 1, he delegated like dealing with other people to like Breeze and Ham and stuff. And then he just dealt with like the central group. And so I think that's what we're seeing again is Kelsier functions really well with like a small team that he's directly involved with. But yeah, people like Mraize who are more free agents are going to be, you know, not as influenced by him.
They're following the orders and the directives, but like they don't have like, it's
The same
integrating
morals.
them into the proper culture of things. That's hard.
The company culture of Ghost
Company
Bloods.
culture of the
Yeah.
Ghost Bloods.
Yeah, I guess I think I would have been more open to the idea of Marasi joining the Ghost Bloods if we didn't have Mraize doing what he's been doing throughout, especially Rhythm of War, without getting
fair.
into that book. Yeah, I feel like just Mraize's existence reflects poorly on Kelsier.
Yeah.
I could see Kelsier running the Ghost Bloods the way Mraize acts, and I could see Kelsier running the Ghost Bloods the way we see here in the Lost Metal. I could not quite see him doing both simultaneously.
And I don't think he's really running the Ghost Bloods on Rasarr. I think that he has deputized Eatil to do it. And we saw the way he had to rein in her brother from that. And he just hasn't. Kelsier always has blind spots when it comes to the people close to him. He always has and probably always will. And he is trusting someone to run the show on Rasarr that maybe he shouldn't be trusting.
I think it's a failure on his, like, I see Mraize as kind of definitely a failure on Kelsier's part, like an understandable failure in some ways, but definitely I agree with what both of you are saying.
Kadie, didn't you have an issue that we did 2 books in a row where someone's being recruited in the Ghost Bloods and then they turn him down?
Oh yeah, I guess kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's basically it. He said, like, let's recruit someone to the Ghost Bloods and have them stay, or just like something, break it up a little.
Yeah, it is funny how it is back-to-back Cosmere books. Jess has the exact same issue. I do think in Era 3 we will see a point of view Ghost Blood character, like for sure, like of someone who is in the Ghost Bloods. I think Brandon knows this. I was a bit bummed for Marasi not joining the Ghost Bloods because I'm like, but answers, give it to me. But it is also
she
the
would have
last
been great.
book. She would have been great.
Yeah.
But
She
it's
would
not
have
for
been
her
a good influence on Kelsier.
That's
but-
true. That's true. But ultimately, it is the last book, right? It would have been weird to have her join the Ghost Bloods and like, wait, we don't see that on screen. Like, that would have also kind of been a bummer, right? So, like, having maybe someone in Mistborn Era 3, Book 1, join the Ghost Bloods, and we get to spend time with them in the Ghost Bloods and see, like, how this works and some interesting things going on with Kelsier and stuff, and, like, explore that. Like, that couldn't have been this book, so that makes sense. But it is just funny how it's back-to-back books of, I don't want to join your crew.
Yeah.
I do like how she became the governor. I think that was a good end to her arc. That wasn't just her kind of staying in the same place that she's always been, that she goes to ambassador and then governor, and she is going to help change the world in bigger ways.
She's planning to run for governor, right?
Planning.
I mean, we know she'll
win.
win. She'll win 100%. And I like how they left things open enough with the Ghost Bloods that just because she didn't join doesn't mean that they won't keep in some level of contact with her throughout her career, because she is a valuable contact when it comes to getting things done. And while she couldn't see her way through to joining them, I could see her being willing to work with them on occasion when it is for the good of the planet.
She didn't say that. She was like, I'll work with you again if you're willing to offer your help.
So are we expecting elderly Governor Marasi in Era 3?
Yes!
Oh, that would be delightful.
I want like 80-year-old elderly Marasi, and it's just like, we need help from the lady governor or something. And we get like Grandma Marasi, she's got a gun. She's a little old-timey for the modern era, but she is ready to go and amazing.
Let me call up some friends to give us a hand.
I know a guy. He's God.
Yeah. But that reminds me how much in this book I loved Mistborn Era 1 callbacks. And like when I was writing my top 10, I was like, oh, a lot of these are like Era 1 callbacks or Cosmere things. It was a bit harder for me to get Era 2 things on there. Like I'm pleased with that. But like I think a lot about the Era 1 stuff. Like when Marsh shows up, hell yeah, amazing. When Kelsier shows up and you're in the Ghost Blood HQ, like, oh, we're doing this now. Okay, cool. And so it would be cool in Era 3 to have like callbacks to Era 2 and like feel that same sense of fondness and things. I think
that will happen.
I think that will happen. Yeah. That's going to be Mistborn's whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that was actually one of the I thought the Wax and Wayne stuff was like written well, but I think one of the things is it was kind of playing on nostalgia for Wax and Wayne in Alloy of Law, like the book one. And personally, I think if someone was nostalgic for Wax and Wayne and Alloy of Law, that would have been really impactful. So I was appreciating it was well done, but I was like, Alloy of Law was my least favorite in the quartet. So
I saw some YouTube comments where people were pairing Shadows and Bands below Lost Metal and Alloy, and it's like, that's interesting. I would definitely put Alloy and Lost Metal below Shadows and Bands personally, but I think that's a good point. That like, if you really liked Alloy, then you get a lot more of that. And Brandon talked about that at the con, which
it's a bookend. Like there's going to be callbacks to the first book, but I loved the era. Even like Wax's ascent through the Shaw really mirrored Finn's ascent through Keep Hasting in to attack Set in Well of Ascension. Like even some of the visual stuff. It's pretty.
And like Siege of Luthadel, that sending to Wax there, going up the spire. Oh, so good.
Yeah,
so good.
I really liked that moment. Normally I don't like pure action scenes, but I liked that one because of the way it was written. I'm very much a prose person. If the prose is good, I will often like it. I liked the way that it was written. It felt very poetic. It felt you felt yourself getting pushed along with Wax and this just inexorable, inevitable movement upward as he did what he knew he had to do. And then that moment at the end where he's feeling things about it and he's like, I can't believe this. You don't understand what this is like. And Sazed's just like, boy, don't I?
It's like, oh man. Well, actually, though.
No, but he doesn't say it. He just plops it into his head with no words. I love that moment so much as well. It's such a good moment.
It's so good.
One of my favorite pieces of that whole sequence too is at the end where Wayne's like, no, the guys below, they were ready, but these are just some dudes. Let's give them a chance. And every life on that level is saved because of what Wayne did.
That's such a great Wayne moment. Like there were a lot of really good Wayne moments, and also his humor did really land for me quite well in this book, actually. But like that was a fantastic Wayne moment there. It's like, Wax, we don't got to do that. They don't want to fight. They saw what happened. They don't want to die like that.
I have to say, I think I mentioned this a few times on Discord, at least, that I have not actually read Well of Ascension and Hero of Ages, so I didn't have this comparison. But the whole sequence really reminded me. I don't know, have you watched Raid, the movie? Okay, or Judge Dredd, that's the same premise, basically.
Oh.
So Raid is about a group of policemen who have to raid the title, a skyscraper, and the whole movie is basically this scene from the book, just extended to 90 minutes. And it's an excellent movie. If you haven't watched it, I recommend. If you like that scene from Lost Metal, watch Raid.
Okay.
Because I had throughout this entire sequence, I had music from Raid playing in my head, just on a loop.
Ella, did you say you haven't read Well of Ascension and Hero of Ages?
I said this before. Yes, I have not. Because, so I read The Final Empire. And then I accidentally spoiled myself on the fact that Vin and Ellen die.
Oh.
So I was like, I don't want to read about people who I know are going to die.
Oh, wow. I actually didn't know about this, I don't think.
So, and then years later, when I actually got into the fandom through Way of Kings, I just kind of casually read all the Mistborn spoilers, so since I just haven't felt the need to read it.
Okay.
I would say they're good books, and I recommend them.
Yeah. As someone who has reread them several times, obviously knowing everything, they hold up pretty good, even if you know what happens.
I could expect that this community would recommend reading a Sanderson book.
Yeah, guys, we like Brandon Sanderson books. We really do. We wouldn't be having 3 reaction shows if we didn't. Come on, guys.
Another thing that I liked, if we're talking about things that I liked.
Let's do it.
At the end, with at the Shaw and on the boat after that, just in general, Sazed being there and talking to them and seeming like just as much of a part of the conversation and a solid character there as they were interacting with all that. I really liked that because I really like him and I like seeing him. And so instead of him being the character that you occasionally have a conversation with and he tells you things to do and maybe intro drops a little, having him instead be there having conversations with them through that whole scene and especially with Wayne at the end, but also with the both of them together and with Wax calling him Sazed as well. I really liked all of that. I liked the interplay of him being a character and as well in the epilogue with Kelsier. I liked him being more present in that way.
Yeah, having more Sazed was great.
I really liked there was a comparison where they set Marsh, Sazed, and Kelsier up kind of as a little trinity.
Yep.
And I really liked that moment.
I want to see Marsh interact with Sazed.
Yeah. I want to see all 3 of them interact because I find it very interesting that Marsh wasn't there at the end and Sazed was just like, oh yeah, your brother's gonna live. And it's like, where is Marsh? He's not telling you this himself? Do you guys talk? Hey, I'm gonna survive. I'm gonna survive, actually. No, but Sazed delivers this information. I was like, where are you?
Sazed's a very good postman.
Here. Kelsier and Marsh were never good at talking to each other.
That's true. That's true.
And I think even with Sazed being Ruin and Harmony / Discord, then having I've always said I love Kelsier and Marsh's dynamic on that spectrum as well, because Kelsier is traditionally more aligned with preservation as the archetypal Mistborn, and Marsh is the archetypal Inquisitor of Ruin, but Marsh's actions are more in line with preservation often, whereas Kelsier tends to do more Ruin-y stuff. So there's just a lot of fun. And so the fact that the 3 of them are kind of their own little pantheon on Scadrial is kind of cool with God and demigods is kind of how I've started thinking about them a little bit. Much.
Yeah, that epilogue scene though, Kelsier and Harmony. I mean, we've seen that Harmony is barely holding his stuff together. He's very, very worried, and yet in that epilogue, he does not admit any of that to Kelsier. And I'm sitting here going, I've seen people, going on about how, what, you just lied to him. You said, have I ever lied to you? You lied to him in Secret History. You just lied to him 2.5 minutes ago. What's going on here? And I'm reading it differently because I'm looking at this going, Sazed knows Kelsier and knows the best way to get Kelsier to do stuff is to make him not realize you want him to do the thing. And
interesting.
I feel like some of this is part of it, maybe Sazed's prescience going, I need Kelsier to be in a specific state of mind for when I do go off the rails, because we know he's going to. And I wonder if he is saying the things that he thinks Kelsier needs to hear in order to be suspicious enough to keep an eye on him.
I don't know if Sazed has that much self-awareness about this Dark Shadow, I gotta be honest. It's unclear.
But there are certain things that he was outright admitting to Wax
That's
that
true.
he flat out lied to with Kelsier.
That's true.
And you're like, wait a second, these don't jive. So that tells me that Sazed is up to something there. He's trying to do something with Kelsier to get Kelsier to do something specific. And we all know Kelsier, and we know that as a vessel, Sazed has a certain amount of future sight, and it could very well be that, well, if I were to just level with him, he would relax. And that's a problem. I need him to not be relaxed.
Interesting theory.
Yeah, that is my theory, and I'm sticking to it. And I can see Eric doesn't agree, and this will be a fun few years while I slowly wait to be proved right.
I just don't think. I think Sazed knows Kelsier is dangerous and doesn't want to admit it's like, clearly Lerasium was made. We're just like immediately lying. But like that's the subtext. That like Kelsier knows that when Sazed says, have I ever lied to you? Kelsier's like, yeah, like all the time since you've been gone. Like, I feel like they've been through this, but maybe Sazed, from his perspective, it's like, well, I mean, I didn't lie. I just have a very slanted point of view about this. I don't know.
I think Sazed takes the information he discloses very seriously because he's very scared of influencing things. So I think part of his like lying and obfuscation or like lies of omission is because he thinks he knows too much and doesn't want, you know what I mean? Like, I think part of his whole MO of being like not too interventionist is, yeah.
But I do think that there is at least, I think he may not necessarily know about the Discord shadow, but he knows he is in trouble because he has so much difficulty acting. And, you know, he's cautious with Kelsier, but also Kelsier is in a position to do things he can't. So he's trying to balance that.
Stay tuned for a podcast next week, this coming weekend on Harmony and Discord, where we talk all sorts of things about this.
Since we're talking a little bit about Kelsier and we talked about Marasi before, one thing I'll say as a callback to Arrow 1 as well is Kelsier letting Marasi go proves what he was telling Vin in book 1, because in book 1 he kind of introduces Vin to the crew and then it's like, yeah, no, you can walk away if you want, like, we're not gonna like kill you or whatever. And she like learns to believe him, but at the time she doesn't really believe him. So that was a nice touch to be like, oh yeah, like this is him like actually practicing what he's like preached all along.
He clearly didn't like it, but he let her go.
Yeah.
So with Harmony though, there's Discord is near. And
dun dun.
Capital D.
I pretend I do not see it.
Why is that? It's so good.
No, I don't want it to happen. Don't happen. No,
Why?
No Discord, not allowed. I don't like it. I don't even have I don't have very formulated reasons for why I don't like it. I just don't like it.
You don't want Sazed to be evil?
I don't want Sazed to be evil. I'm okay if he suffers. I don't want him to be evil because I like him.
I mean, just because he goes Discord doesn't mean he's going to be outright evil.
Yeah.
It could just mean him embracing the idea that the planet needs some strife in order to develop quickly enough in order to defend themselves against autonomy. Which
people are gonna see him as evil. I feel like.
Yes, but remember the prophecy, they will love him for it.
Yeah. They will love him for it.
His name shall be Discord, but they shall love him for it.
Isn't this the same prophecy that Ruin messed up?
Well, so here's the thing. There are
confusing.
totally things in... We got to do eventually a Terrace Prophecies episode, because the question of how much of this is reliable is a good question, and how preservation gave it to people. But from a writerly perspective, when you have that epigraph in Final Empire be introduced, the chapter Sazed is introduced. I feel like Brandon might know something here. I don't feel that's a coincidence.
I don't know, man. What does Brandon know?
And like, Ruin was like editing things for a specific purpose, not like necessarily like long-term purpose. Like he like they were very short-term edits. Like I don't know if he would have edited this about Discord, but like it you are right. Well, like it is fallible for sure.
The way I see it, and I mentioned this on our predictions podcast, like Shardic Future Sight, it's looking at like a bunch of different possibilities, right? Yep. So I think more than one thing can be true in prophecy at once. So I think there's a version of this prophecy with Harmony and a version of this prophecy with Discord, and both are possible. And I think if Ruin messed with it, Ruin's going to prefer the version with Discord potentially.
That's actually probably true. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm wondering if like that's it. Like it's not that it's not true. It is true. It's just Ruin's picking the option that best serves Ruin.
So I'm kind of wondering with Discord, because I have this personal theory that Era 2 is foreshadowing a bunch of stuff for all the subsequent eras of Mistborn. And I kind of want to get into this, my grand prophecy theory later.
Cool. Okay.
Theory later, but the part of it I was thinking, because we know Brandon has been warming up to the idea of writing cyberpunk Mistborn. Right? So cyberpunk being a genre that is, let's say, near and dear to my heart in a way. The theme, the major like setting of cyberpunk, one of the things that make it work is that it's taking place in a world that is in an oppressive status quo that's sliding towards destruction. As you know, the cyberpunk story is corporate dystopia, climate going whack, the rich overexploiting the poor, etc., etc. So it's a preserved state that's sliding towards ruin. So my like guess prediction based on the Lost Metal for the cyberpunk Mistborn is that we will see this sort of terminal state of harmony where the state of the world, the cyberpunk world, kind of reflects the fact that this unbalanced shard is kind of sliding down towards ruin and just not working out. And I think maybe in this case, the change to this from Harmony to Discord could be a good and beneficial thing. Like instead of this withering status quo of cyberpunk dystopia, we get Discord and we get Sazed kicking all the kids out into space to go and start afresh.
I do think the switch is going to happen in Era 3, though, right?
I think Era 3 will start with the Scadrians already out in space. I don't think
it's 1980s.
Sorry, Era. I missed that number of eras. I think Era 4, the final one.
Yeah. That one there in space. Yeah, that's Space Age end of the Cosmere. Yeah. Because you're thinking third trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's confusing. Yeah, I think Era 3, the 80s one, I think that's where we are going to see the switch, and I think we're going to see a lot of Kelsier versus Sazed. I think this book is really setting that up, right?
I just really feel like cyberpunk is a more suitable setting for like the way Harmony can go bad, just because of just how this sort of cyberpunk world is usually designed.
Yeah, yes, he is warming up to potentially writing one, but like, I don't know if that's going to happen. I think it's got to happen in Era 3.
I see what you're saying. I think there's a point to the genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see him doing the cyberpunk era with a co-author.
Here's the thing. I want Sazed to become Discord in Era 3, and I want Kelsier to personally murder Sazed. That's what I want. Yeah, that's my take.
Okay.
That's what I
Full
want.
on darkness here, man.
Yes. And I actually have even more takes that you'll have to wait till our Kelsier episode after we talk about Ghost Bloods.
Kadie is not happy with you right now.
No. It's like it'll be like, oh, great job, Sazed. You're finally acting, and then like maybe that like solves some problems, right? But then it's like, oh, you're kind of like not balanced. Like you're kind of really oscillating between ruin and preservation a lot, and that's. I have to kill you for the good of Scadrial, and we're gonna see it in Kelsier's POV. I see that, Matt. I see that face. And I want Kelsier to personally kill Sazed. And then when Discord's dead, we use the dead shard to power the spaceships in Era 4. Easy. Nailed it.
I hate to burst your murderous bubble here, but we do have a wob where Brandon gives us a line from Sazed from Era. From the Space Age Cosmere, so I think.
Wait, which one's this? Is that It Is Yours?
One where it's It Is Yours.
That's
one.
Era 3. That's not Space Age.
Is it Era 3?
No, it's like Mistborn 8 or 9. It's not Era. It's an Era 3 quote.
Yeah.
I think it was called like Era 3, but in the time before Era 2 existed.
It was because it was at Shadows of Self-Release. It was, no, I was there. That was not an Era 4 quote. Sorry.
He remembers.
I do. I was there.
Okay.
It was it's gonna be like book 2 or 3 of Era 3. It's kind of weird because Lost Metal and like this is Mistborn 7, so it's kind of a little weird in that sense. But he could still die. He could still die. Look. I just want people to suffer. I want people to suffer, and how much suffering would Kelsier feel that he personally has to kill his friend? Who?
But then they can't keep suffering if they're dead.
Yeah, but then we get to see. Well, Kelsier will still suffer, but Sazed will be dead. Yeah, right. It's so good. It's so good.
This as like a sound bite that we can reuse. Just
clip it.
Saying, I just want people to suffer.
I just want people to suffer.
Really does.
Look, it makes for great storytelling. I'm a little sad Wax didn't shoot Steris. No, that's a joke. I'm not serious. I'm not serious about that. I'm just saying it would have really. Wax didn't have a lot of character development, so it's a joke. I'm not serious about this at all.
Steris was MVP back in Elendil. And Steris was amazing.
She was great.
Steris was shafted in this book.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
There was not enough of her. She didn't. Yeah, she was good. What we got was great, but it was not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and I
never
think
been enough Steris.
Yeah, I agree. Like the thing is, like Steris isn't the main character, and I agree with you. I want more Steris, but I kind of went into this book like I would have loved a book that was primarily Marasi and Steris. So I was very happy with the amount of Marasi, and then with Steris, I kind of just had to say it's the last Wax and Wayne book. He's gonna give the people Wax and Wayne. Like they're on the cover.
They are on the cover. That's true. That's a good start.
Steris has never gotten a huge amount of points of view, so I think we got more of them in this book than we had before.
Way more, and way more POVs too. Yeah.
But definitely fair to want more of her because she's like, and she's like a pretty fan favorite character. Like I feel like I kind of wonder like her. I kind of see similar almost to Adolin. Like Brandon has said before, he didn't really have super big plans for Adolin originally. And then his role has kind of like expanded over time. And I kind of wonder if Steris is similar. Especially knowing that Alloy of Law was originally a standalone. Like...
Yeah.
Was it though? that ending promised sequels. Brandon, come on. Yes, Kadie?
I think what we did get of Steris was very good autistic and neurodivergent representation. That's the word I'm going for.
Yeah.
I thought that was very good. I found parts of it very relatable, parts of it not so much, but I thought that was done well. And I appreciate Brandon trying to do that better after Elantris and Adian.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch the Adian reference, though, in this book?
That's right. That's
I
right.
wish my brother were here.
Yeah.
Man, he could do this.
Code names. So good.
She was great.
She was great.
Can I just say these Ghost Bloods, their nicknames are hilarious.
Hilarious.
Because
Code
so you
names
have
are
twins,
stupid.
So, yeah, Twin Soul, who's like just very literal, like, you know.
I got to, you know.
Code names are stupid from like the team linguist. I thought, like, because her whole thing is she like learns like Marasi remarks that she has an accent because she codenames Kays actually learns the new language. She doesn't use connection tricks. And then Shy has the audacity to make her codename Moonlight on a planet without a moon.
No moon on Scadrial.
And honestly, and I think that was also partly a dig at Hoyd because she's been keeping an eye on him, and she's like, I know you stole that moon scepter and you got me into trouble, man.
Oh, yeah, it could be a moon
that
scepter
is just like
reference.
100% like, yeah, I'm here. I didn't stay caught. Ha ha ha.
Also, the part I want a Hoyd POV when he's driving one of the, like in the convoy, Hoyd's driving one of the cars and Moonlight's in one of the other cars. Like that part, I was like, they're so close together.
I know. I would have loved to see this point of view, and they're just sending stink eyes. Like, I see you. It's like, yeah, I see you too. Like, oh yeah.
Especially when Shy's like, the reason I joined the Ghost Bloods is Kelsier and I have a common enemy.
Well,
we're like, oh boy.
if you think about it, though, this is very interesting because Kelsier hates Hoyd. And Hoyd is friends with Harmony. I imagine Kelsier doesn't like that. And there's a lot of references in the book of the Ghost Bloods like, yeah, no, Kelsier does not like people involved with Harmony and stuff. And I feel like we're setting things up for a future of Kelsier on a bridge of a starship and Hoyd on the bridge of another starship. And they are fighting, and that is going to be great.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering if maybe one of these subplots in Era 3 is Kelsier trying to bring in Shy to get her de-elantricized.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Comment on how difficult it's going to be to get her back. I'm like, oh, that's got to be an on-screen thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that'll be, I think that'll be dealt with by Era 3. My thought was if Brandon ever wants to write another like Mistborn novella.
Secret History 2?
Yeah.
But wait. Secret History 2's got to be Marsh stuff and creating the bands and stuff. It can't be Shy. That'd be something else.
Well,
let me suggest something. Yes, exactly. Secret History 3.
I was thinking like how he did the novellas for the Meg, like the Gemmel story, and like something like that. I think you could do a short like. But like the Shy stuff too, like I'm still a little confused. So are they saying that like as an Elantrian, because normally her essence marks wear off, even her like permanent ones, she has to program into it the need to restamp in order for it to be permanent. So is she saying that because she's an Elantrian, the stamp becomes self-sustaining using the door?
I think as long as her supply of door lasts, the stamp might stick.
Gotcha. That's very interesting.
It seems that like forgery has gone on because like in Emperor's Soul, she wouldn't have those essence marks where I could just shove it into this wall and it opens a hole, right? Like, so like there's been advancements, right?
Yeah, there's been advancements. Yeah, I just found it interesting. Well, because like it was just interesting to me because she seemed hesitant to use it specifically because of its permanence when the ones we saw before weren't permanent. So it made me think that it must be a unique thing about the Elantrian.
I think when you are fueling a soul stamp with a hunk of shiny door, some weird things happen.
Yeah.
And as long as that supply of investiture lasts, I think the stamp will stick.
Yeah. And as an Elantrian, she can potentially easily continue to be supplied, right? Because she can...
If she gets back to it. I mean, she can't get back to Cell. We know that. Because
what are the coordinates that Marasi gave her too?
That was for her to teleport out so that she would teleport somewhere safe.
No, but where?
I don't know.
Out of the building and compound that they were in, I guess.
So interesting.
Yeah. I don't know exactly, but I assume that was somewhere that a location that Shy had set up to that was a safe place for her to jump to, that she wouldn't, materialize in stone or something.
Also fun though about that was getting to see an Elantrian in their full glory, which we don't get to see much of.
Matt, did we though? I was actually kind of disappointed. I didn't love it. Like, because we just don't see any of it on screen. We're just like, hey, I am Shay, and I am an Elantrian, and you got to get out of here, and I'm going to do other stuff. I'm like, all right, cool, I guess. Like, what?
I guess we got to see an Elantrian's attitude, like culturally. Like, we didn't get to see her in action per se, but like the only Elantrians we see in Elantris are like ones who are hoed, right? And then become
that's
what it's called, right?
I would say hoed, not toad, personally. But
I don't think that would be an Elantrian's kind of natural personality. I think it might be for some, but I almost... Maybe this is just wishful thinking because I don't like it. I don't like her when she's like that. I don't like it, and I don't want other Elantrians to act like that. Maybe they used to act like that, and now Raoden will kind of like this is a whole new crop, basically. So maybe it'll be different now.
It was annoying.
I wish that she got it wrong.
Yeah. She only go with what she knows. So
because she wasn't one.
Is pretty far back in the timeline though. So like, and I'm like, if you're an Elantrian in that culture, like, I think you're going to get a god complex.
I mean, that's probably
no matter what Raiden's best intentions are.
It's just so funny how I do think the essence marks are actually more confusing if you've read Emperor's Soul. Like, Emperor's Soul doesn't make Shy's magic more clear. It actually is like, wait, what happened here? And two, how much I prefer Twin Soul becoming the giant rock monster as opposed to Shy becoming an Elantrian. Like, I just thought it should have felt cooler, and it wasn't. And I think a lot of it was Shy's Elantrian attitude. And I'm like, I really don't like you immediately. And
I thought it was hilarious, but
I thought it was really funny.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the...
Interesting.
It was very funny, though. I am somewhat like, now that I'm thinking about it more, shouldn't she be like near powerless because she's like literally light years away from Elantris?
It was that supply of door.
That's what she had used the jar for.
They did the thing with the map, I think. And she
so does that mean that the moment she runs out, the soul stamp will make her go hoed?
Well, I think the stamp
she just
would
reverts back to herself.
Yeah, I think just the stamp would just fail. So she'd go back.
Maybe it would go hoed for, a little while, but eventually the stamp runs out because soul forgery is as much an investiture art as anything, and it still needs power to draw on.
Right. But yeah, I think I found the whole shy, however you pronounce it, scene very funny. It wasn't as epic as Prasanva Twin Soul. I keep trying to use his real name. Prasanva going sure, prefer mech because it's mech, it's cool, and also it builds up more on what was already established that he could do. Like doing structures with is kind of Prasanva's whole thing. So of course,
a lot of fuel. We're set. Let's go.
Yeah,
I'm not a mech person.
I don't
know. Am I the only person here who
I could take a mech or leave it, but I did like the twin soul. It's
So
interesting what Brandon, in terms of having the gloves off, Cosmere wise, is doing with Moonlight and Twin Soul. Actually, they make an interesting parallel because in Twin Soul, he's introducing us to a concept from a book we haven't read that hasn't come out yet, an off-world concept.
Yep.
And in Moonlight Shy, we're getting a bunch of allusions to Elantris and Emperor's Soul. And so I think it really is a good example of how just because he's doing Cosmere gloves off doesn't necessarily mean people need to get super hung up about reading order or like I don't think Elantris or Emperor's Soul is required reading.
I don't think
necessarily before this book.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Any more than like I'm assuming we're going to eventually get some sort of book regarding wherever Twin Soul is from.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not required reading.
Go to the future. Read that book, then come back to this book.
This book has enough information to understand what's going on. And there's no necessary requirement for having read other things before it to be able to get enough out of it to follow the story and have it make sense.
Yeah,
and I can't think of a way that this book would have interfered with my ability to enjoy Elantris or Emperor's Soul if I had read The Lost Metal first. Because that's the reverse issue with reading order, right? You're not just concerned about understanding this book. You're concerned is this book going to ruin other books for me? Yeah. And I don't think the references are to the extent that would happen.
Yeah, I think like the only thing that could possibly spoil is the fact that Shai survives the Emperor's Soul.
Sure. Yeah.
Which,
and that's not a huge stretch, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like protagonists living. Okay, whatever. I had a very interesting experience because I was chatting a lot with Murphy Napier as she was reading The Lost Metal, and she loves the Cosmere and stuff, but she is not in the Cosmere like we're in the Cosmere, right? And so like she's reading part 1, like I alluded. I mean, it's in my review, right? That there's a lot of Cosmere stuff, right? And so she's reading the scene where Wax is splitting the harmonium and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I feel like I had to read that a bunch of times." I'm like, Murphy, just have fun with it. Just like it'll be fine. And she hasn't read Emperor's Soul, and she thought the book was totally fine. She likes the book more than me. So like it's not a confusing thing. And what she did the next day is, just go read Emperor's Soul. Like that's what she did. That's a cool aspect. And so she had no issues with that, not reading Emperor's Soul. And so I think it's very interesting how the Cosmere stuff is working. I really don't think people need to be a reading order purist. Like Jess read Words of Radiance before Warbreaker. And I think people would generally agree, read Warbreaker before Stormlight, but it's like, it's fine. I think more than the reading order part, I think it's more just Kelsier as the leader of the Ghostbloods this spoils a thing in Rhythm of War, not spoils, but like the publication order aspect is weird. Like no one 10 years from now is going to read it in publication order, I don't think, right? Like you're going to read all 5 Stormlight first half or all of Era 2 together, right? So like that's kind of weird and clunky, but like it works separately and is complementary maybe? But it is that's a little weird, but
Like it's one of the things like, do you read Secret History and then Bands?
Yes.
Or Bands and then Secret History? Because they kind of spoil elements of each other. And I think it can be satisfying both ways. It's just, you got to pick one.
And like Secret History, you'll probably get more what's happening if you read it right after Era 1, but at the other hand, like it does spoil this aspect of Bands of Mourning, right? So
yeah, it's a discussion that I've seen hashed over and over, and usually I will approach it from the what is the reader's preference when it comes to spoilers. If you are very spoiler averse, read Bands before Secret History.
Yeah.
Because that is the harder hitting reveal.
Yeah.
But if you don't care, then just read Secret History whenever you want.
Yeah. My mom read Secret History way too late after reading Era 1, and she was very confused. So, like, I definitely think there's an argument to reading it after Era 1.
Yeah, because a lot of what's fun
certainly
about...
what I do in a reread.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what's fun about Secret History is the overlap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, since I've already confessed to my sin of not reading the latter Era 1 books, I read Secret History like when it was published. So I think before Bands of Mourning, was it?
That must have been a trip.
It was right after Bands of Mourning.
Bands of Mourning
came up.
I think it was simultaneous, actually. It was like nearly the same
it was
time.
either after or simultaneous.
It was, here's Bands of Mourning, and there's more.
Yeah.
I don't remember the order in which I read it. I will say, as someone who has, again, not read past the Final Empire, I did not actually find Secret History confusing at all.
Okay, yeah.
No.
Yeah, like the Cosmere plot was enough to carry it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you get enough
and the knowledge
of
of who died.
Yeah,
you get enough out of it for piecing together what was going on. But if I find that reading it right after Era 1 is great on a reread, because the more you do it, the more you piece it together.
Yeah.
And I think someone's even created a reading order of how to read it simultaneously.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But really, the Aethers are just such a good example of Brandon's going to probably do this a lot, where it's just like, here is a new magic thing. What's up? He's going to explain it pretty well. You kind of expect in Brandon Sanderson books, it's like, there's going to be a new magical thing in a book. And in this case, it's the Aethers. I think maybe a different but related discussion is maybe that feels weird to be introducing new magic in the final book of Era 2, which I think is fair. I also think the Marasi plotline's the best part of the book, and made the book better. So rather than like worse, right?
It's part of what I was saying at the beginning, that to me this was a good Mistborn book, but a much better Cosmere book, because this is like the ending of Era 2, but it's also non-insignificant, like the Marvel movie amount of time is spent setting up what's coming next.
Yeah. And it's like, I think one of the concerns people have about taking the gloves off is like, oh, now am I going to have to read every single Brandon release in order to understand things? And I think what Brandon is proving with this book, no, you don't. And to your point, Eric, I think the Mistborn books, one of their like hallmarks is kind of introducing a new magical mechanic every book. Yeah. Like in the original series, we had Allomancy, Feruchemy, Hymnology, and then we had Twinborn. Second book dug into like Khandra and the Trell spikes. Third book had started the medallions and stuff. And now fourth book, we're getting some off-world magic. And since the Ghostbloods are native to, or not all native to Scadrial, but like the organization originated there, it does seem appropriate that this is the series where we get that veil lifted a bit for the first time. Because you have to talk about the Ghostbloods eventually somewhere. And Scadrial's their home base.
Kelsier wants to save Elendel and things. Like he does, right?
There is one criticism that I've seen a lot of places is that Lost Metal did too much for a book that wasn't originally planned, and it shouldn't have had that big an impact, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. You can have something that you didn't originally plan and still weave it into the greater working and have it make a significant difference. Brandon is a meticulous planner, but he can accommodate changes. He's done it in Stormlight with flipping flashback points of view in a couple of books. This is hardly out of the ordinary for him to put more meaningful things into something that he didn't originally plan to write. And the fact that, yes, we're bringing in all these other Cosmere things and all these Ghostblood things, and I would argue that given the threat to Scadrial that was happening at the time, it would not have made sense for Kelsier to have ignored it.
Yeah,
Kelsier being that involved and him having an organization that was that involved, it would have been very strange if he hadn't been up to his eyeballs or hadn't had people involved in it. So it made it a very good introduction in the Scadrial sphere to start seeing what the Ghost Bloods do in Era 2 before we start really dealing with them in future eras.
You really don't want to have an Eternals thing where it's like, why didn't the Eternals deal with Thanos in Infinity War? It's like, well, because we didn't have them yet. And like, it would have just been weird. It's like, why didn't you guys like help out with the big Trell bomb and the last thing? Like, that would have just been weird. Yeah.
The strength in planning comes from versatility and being able to change your plans and incorporate new things depending on what comes up. It's not in having one amazing plan that never changes. That's just not how it works for anything, really.
You can look at our Rhythm of War interview with Brandon. Just there were, I'll be vague, because but Brandon had to make a call on a big change, and it's like, this was always a possibility. I wasn't sure when it would happen, and so Brandon put it in book 4 there. And I think there's things that he's moving up here, and he can deal with other stuff in Era 3.
And the other thing that Brandon's doing, I think, is he's recognizing how he needs to prioritize his main series. Because if he keeps doing endless worlds, the Cosmere is already really big. So I also wouldn't be surprised if he takes projects like this one as an opportunity to work in some concepts from books he's concerned might never get written.
True.
Also, I think, sure, this book wasn't originally planned, but this book has been planned in some form for a decade. So there's still a lot of planning that went into this book.
Once Alloy exists, it's like, okay, we have to deal with Trell stuff, right? Like, obviously.
I will say it feels a little bit silly to be saying that Brandon doesn't have a plan. Like, Brandon doesn't know how to change a plan to make it work. But like, even on like a smaller, maybe more personal level, these allusions to the wider Cosmere are doing a good job of like getting you interested in it. Because like, if you were, some lone Cosmere reader out there who's just the fan of Mistborn and hasn't like discovered the Roger fandom, this would probably be the book that would get you to look up, okay, what's up with this Moonlight person? Oh, there's Emperor's Soul.
Cool.
What's up with this Twin Soul guy? Okay, we have to wait for that. But like, for me personally, the whole like Prasanva thing was the first thing that really got me hyped for a possible Ether of Night book. Because it used to be like, there is the free unpublished version that's circulating around the internet through
Get it on
the
17shard.com.
Yep, we're the sole distributors of Ether in the Cosmere, in the universe right now. And I read the first few chapters of it, then dropped it because I was just not really enjoying it. But now this reworked, new and improved and mecha'd up version of Ether of Night. Like, I want to see this Ether of Night. I hope they have mech duels in that book.
Well, they wouldn't have like the super fuel necessarily to do that.
It would be on like the planet where the big ethers are. So presumably they would have more access to like raw power than.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess it was this weird thing. It's like some worlds have like an energy field. You don't have that here. Like there's that line too.
Yes. So I think the ether mechs are more easily attainable on the planet that actually has ethers aplenty.
I'm imagining flying mechs hanging around in the high storms on Rasarr, just like
yes.
Give me that. Nice.
Well, yes, I want the climax of whatever the Ether of Night will end up being to be like a crystal Voltron.
All right, nice, cool.
Yeah,
just a bunch of people getting their Rosyites together to make a giant mech.
Nice.
Crystal robot.
Nice. Perfect.
Also, like, speaking of like the crossover stuff, we got a Skybreaker or Skybreakers cameo near the end,
Potentially.
right?
It does seem when someone's like,
Yeah.
"Are you sure this is legal?" That's like, maybe.
Yeah.
Which is
Mhm.
And then they
interesting.
fly, and the assumption is they're coin shots, but
They just kind of
Right.
take off. It's
to a
very heavily
Scadrian
implied.
person, a Skybreaker's flight, like a lashing, would look like a
Mhm.
push or pull.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're going to put it in the frame of reference that they understand
Yeah.
until proven otherwise.
Which is interesting. Kelsier working with a Skybreaker, like that's all right. That's interesting.
I'm
Well,
gonna lie, I did not
and
realize those were Skybreakers until this very moment.
I think that's a lot of people, and I,
Yeah.
I also think that there's like, does
it's
it
a
even
blink
make
and you
sense?
miss it.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
a theory.
yeah,
it's not
a theory,
confirmed.
Yeah,
But like, I feel like what is the purpose of is this legal line? Because the
Yeah.
Ghost Bloods
Seems-
don't care. The Ghost
It's-
Bloods don't
yeah.
care if it's legal.
but aren't those
So-
Ghostbloods?
Yes.
Those are the Elendel
Yes.
agents that
Yeah.
Kelsier-
So it's just that is just a fascinating can of worms.
So, but the Skybreakers also, that means there's potentially Spren on Scadrial, which
Well, I
We
mean,
know they're-
presumably they fixed the problem of getting Spren off world because Hoyt's here.
Yeah.
So at least
Yeah.
someone figured it out, right?
yeah.
Wow.
So, but that's really, yeah. But it means
Someone.
but Hoyd is always the exception. Like,
Well, true. That's true.
like just because Hoyd can do something, I would not assume that anyone else can do that thing. So
If that is a Skybreaker, then that has a lot of very interesting implications. So it's like, okay, the Ghostbloods have
Yeah.
figured this out as well.
especially for
actually-
Kelsier's goals, since like if a Spren can come to Scadrial, can Kelsier use a similar thing to leave?
Corporate's coming to Rasarr to fix up the Ghostbloods
Yeah.
on Rasarr. It's like,
In the
hey,
back five.
regional manager, you're not doing super great
Yeah.
here.
You know, this is making me like, because we know like era 2 is supposed to be taking place like between the two halves of Stormlight.
Yeah, correct.
So
Yeah.
there are some intriguing like implications. It's like the fact that there are Skybreakers on Adriel right now working with Kelsier does imply that something happens to Nail in Stormlight 5. And also like on a similar note, like Milan's epilogue also like red hair does make me think that either we're talking Horn Eaters or Singers, because in the Cosmere, the red hair were historically associated with those two groups. So this is intriguing for what's
Hints
happening
of
in SA5.
potential cataclysm on Rasarr in Stormlight 5.
I don't
And
think anything's going to
this
go
is-
wrong, Rosemary. I don't know what you're talking about. I think it's going to be great.
This is
Kumbaya.
all 100% calculated by Brandon to go, let's see if I can get them to freak out about this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
and
like
that-
also
yeah. Mhm.
Kaisi also mentions that Rasarr is no longer, but you know, I wasn't really paying much attention to that at the time because Rasarr is a dangerous place to visit on best of days. You know, between
Since
the
Everstorm,
wars
for
and
sure.
the Everstorm and the currently ongoing apocalyptic war.
You know, as you do.
But like the fact that we have Hoyt, who does not seem to be, you know, particularly depressed about the whole situation. And presumably this design is with him because again, he's not depressed about the whole situation.
We don't see in his head or really talk to him.
Yeah, that is true, but I want to avoid. So between Hoyt being here, the Skybreakers thing, Kaisi talking about danger, and Milan's epilogue, which also briefly shout out to our first on-screen Shodel. But yeah, between those facts, it is intriguing what's going to happen in Stormlight 5.
I still want to know how Shy and Casey got off a cell.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Elantra sequels someday. Like Elantra sequels are going to be fascinating to read after like this book, you know?
Well, I think Cell has the most confirmed world hoppers.
Which is hilarious given how difficult it is to get into and out of.
Yeah, because we have, granted, the Irie might have been pre, you know, like maybe the Irie departed at a better time.
Well,
but
the door would still exist, though. So that's the problem,
true.
right? Like, it wouldn't be easier, but they'd just be very experienced Elantrians pre-Raid.
But the Irie got off. Like, we have Galadon running around, and now Kaze and Shy, like
Lighthouse guy.
Lighthouse guy?
Yeah,
Like
guy.
any Irie, right? Yeah, because he's an Irie.
Although if he's an Irie, like, he's post
Raid, yeah.
like post Elantris,
Yeah, he's the Hoed that they throw in the pool. Which is crazy.
Which just gives you even more questions of how did he not just dissolve into the door when he because the door that allegedly took him right straight through. Yeah. How did he survive that?
I'm guessing it's some sort of intent thing, like how Raoden was able to sink into it and then pop back up. But maybe if you sank into it with the right intent, that's maybe very difficult to visualize.
You didn't expect an Elantris mechanic episode in Lost Metal Reactions 3, but here you are.
It's just a matter of how did he not get torn apart by the chaos that is the door?
Like instantly upon transition. Brandon's really good at making us think about interesting questions. It's like, Brandon, I need more books, please. I need answers.
He keeps saying, oh, Cell's one of the hardest places to travel to. Cell's one of the hardest. And it's like, okay, is it maybe easier to get off of Cell and hard to get back?
Maybe.
Like, and that's why we have so many Cellish world hoppers, because people, it's like a one-way.
They're like, well, I guess we're stuck out here now. Oh, well.
Like, maybe it's easy to identify like a safe port through when you're on world, but try like in Shadesmar, like trying to get back and find, I don't know.
It easily could be that the Irie like have sort of figured out the path, and like once one person figures it out, then it's like, okay, great, I'll do that. You know,
like maybe the perpendicularity is the eye of a storm or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
I was thinking, like, you know how like Mount Everest, it took two dudes like until like early 1900s to get the top with great effort, and now you have queues to the top.
Yeah, right.
And people dying every single year that they let people up there.
Yeah, but still a lot more people reaching the top. Yeah. You know, we don't know how many people die trying to get out of Cell.
They're not main characters. They're totally dead. But the main characters that are named, they're fine. Don't worry.
but it is interesting that Brandon keeps, like, because he keeps bringing up Cell's really hard to get to. Like, he has explicitly, like, I feel like brought that up a couple times, and yet he keeps showing us Cellish people traveling around. So the conflict there is interesting.
From a writerly perspective, it sort of reminds me of how Brandon was saying in our interview, how Kelsier being the leader of the Ghostbloods is to like help remind people that Scadrial is important. And I think these Cellish world hoppers are like, guys, I'm gonna get back to Cell, I promise, type thing, you know? And so like that's kind of an interesting way to do it. I do agree it is interesting given the words of Brandon. Like, again, it almost makes more sense if you know less about it. It's like, oh yeah, they're from other worlds. Yeah, cool, great. Like you don't bat an eye, but if you know the words of Brandon, it's like, okay, that is a little weird. But
yeah.
So a little bit ago, Rasarr mentioned Milan's epilogue, where she is with a guide in Shadesmar, and that guide, Jan Ven, is a Shodel. And this is, I believe, the first time we have ever seen on screen a Shodel. And this will be a lot of people's introduction to them, although we know Ambition is one.
Yeah, the Ulada, the Shard of Ambition. For those of you who don't know, Shodel were one of the three races on Yolen: humans, Shodel, and dragons. All unpublished.
So they're there, and they're unpublished, and this is the first real introduction to them. But we have seen them before in Brandon's Dragonsteel Prime unpublished chapters. And for those who don't know, Dragonsteel Prime was the book that he wrote as his master's thesis that is Hoid's backstory, basically. And he's going to rewrite it to be actually a thing that you can read as a good trilogy later on. As it is, it's just kind of not a lot of people can access it, so we can't talk about most of it. But he has put out a few sample chapters online, and those have some Shodel in them. And the main character in those in that Jarek is fighting a war against the Shodel, and he,
on the Shattered
looks
Plains,
at them.
By the way,
Yes, on the Shattered Plains. It's like proto Stormlight as well.
The Shattered Plains were originally
yes,
he
and the
imported
bridge
those into Way of Kings. Yeah.
So they're having the war, and he's looking at them, and he's like, "Oh man, these Inhumans with their terrible eyes that look so cool.
Black.
They look so cool and scary, and this all of this weird that their skin is so pale and their eyes are so crazy, and that's about it. And then we go here, and that's what he says. We go here to Milan, where she describes the same thing, and she also says that Shodel have 4 arms. And if we look back at Jarek's points of view, there are specific moments where, in those previews, where he is attempting to teleport humans from Shodel, like down in the chasms at the corpses. There's a corpse, like just like the chasm scenes with Kaladin.
Yeah.
He's trying to tell whether a corpse is human or Shodel, and he has to use like the bones and the clothing to identify it. No mention of there being extra limbs, more arms than there should be on a human. Oh, look at the extra arm bones. No, none of that. None of that.
But it's really the pale skin that really
that's
sells
how
it.
you notice something isn't human.
Clearly, the extra arms were something added by Brandon later.
Yeah, it's got to be a difference in drafts, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Well,
I think it's got to be that.
It's funny.
Would be based on the similarity. Like, I haven't read those samples, but based on the similarity you described to the scene with Kaladin in Way of Kings, I wonder if Brandon kind of took some aspects of the Shodel, the original Shodel, and put them in the Singers.
Probably.
With like the Shattered Plains, and then had to like make the actual Shodel a little more distinct.
I think that's exactly what happened.
The same.
Yeah.
I will just point out it's not just a matter of different drafts, because we did have artwork, like fan art of Ulida before The Lost Metal came out, and those artists knew that Shodel had 4 arms.
I think there's been like
so
some
those was out there.
But like I think Brandon wrote Dragonsteel Prime in like 2001 or something like that.
It was like 2002, published
Something
in 2003.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which
a while ago.
And we know the Cosmere didn't like crystallize until the Mistborn trilogy. He's talked about how like when he put the pool in Elantris, he hadn't worked out the mechanics for how that worked in the wider Cosmere yet.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I imagine it's just like, oh, I took the cool part of Yolen, which was the Shattered Plains, and I moved that, so I got to make like Yolen like differently interesting, because I took that, and it is really funny if you read those sample chapters how much it is just like the same scenes as in Way of Kings. Like there's you can go check them out. They're done much better in Way of Kings, so you kind of, Matt, you've already read them, but yeah, there are some cool Shodel things. It's like they like weave, like they have illusion magic essentially to the skies and stuff, and you do see a dragon. It's cool, and you can check that out.
And the full book will be available next year.
Yes.
With the Words of Radiance leather-bound Kickstarter.
And unlike Way of Kings Prime, I think we'll actually do an episode on that.
We'd better, because I want to be on it.
Oh yeah. No. That one's actually important, and I've wanted to talk about it for a long time. So
maybe I'll actually read Dragonsteel then, because I haven't read either of Night. Like I haven't read any of the.
I have Way of Kings Prime sitting up on my shelves over here. I still haven't read it because I'm like, I don't want to confuse my brain.
It's like, not good. Like it's fine, but
it looks nice on the shelf.
It's hard when you already have a much better version of the book to go to a much worse version of the book. It's really tough. Cool. Alla, I think you wanted to transition to talking about other gods earlier, and then we spent an hour talking about other stuff, but I have a feeling I know what you want to talk about.
Speaking of gods and Dragonsteel things.
Perfect segue. Easy.
Yes, I am a genius. Thank you.
Yes.
I love Autonomy and Bavadin.
Yeah.
And she is fantastic, and I need more of her. And now I'm sad that we'll probably never get a sequel to White Sun graphic novels because, I mean, you know the drama. Because I need more Autonomy in my life. And Bavadin, she was great. She was an excellent. I really enjoyed her as a villain and as a character, and I hope she will stick around in the future to menace, the Cosmere in the future, because, yeah, I just really, really like her.
I mean, how could we not? Like, we're clearly not done with Autonomy. Like, we dealt with the immediate problem, but, like, you could have avatars on literally any world Brandon wants, and we can see some Autonomy influence. That's the great thing with the premise there.
She gives me the vibes of, like, an infestation. And it's like you stamp her out here, but like she's like popped up like 3 little dandelions on these planets, and
is the shard of dandelions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like from here on out, whenever a religion is introduced on Rasarr, I'm gonna be like that meme of that guy pointing at the butterfly, like, is this Autonomy?
Please make that. I'll put that in this episode.
And like the scene where she talks with Wax in the carriage through a corpse, legit one of my favorite scenes in the book.
It's pretty good.
I like how Brandon wove in like the callback to Trell, because like we've known like Trell is like an ancient religion that we heard about from like pre like Alendi and Rayshek times.
Yep.
So I think the explanation he said was basically Autonomy was like, okay, I'm just going to drop Trell here and just kind of hold just in case I ever need that aspect of myself on that planet, and then moves on with other stuff. And like we've all been kind of talking about Trell for a while, and like the religion of Trell with the brother with the sun eye and the jealous of the many eyes of Trell, like that also comes up in a religion for the Pier Lakers, I think, or a similar concept on Rasarr.
There was that Pure Lake, the new Allik. A little bit. And like obviously Dayside, Nightside, or Dark Side, excuse me.
Yeah. So like it's interesting that he's finally like with her able to like play that off a bit. And I'm also like, and I haven't read like White Sand Prime or anything, so my exposure is the published graphic novel, so not like a ton, but it says a lot about Autonomy when you have like one jealous being like the sun is the only thing you can see, and then like multiple different stars, and Autonomy wants autonomy but also has all these like different avatars doing different things, like the kind of dual nature. And they talk about that with the design of Bilming, even how like everything is different, but everything is different in a very calculated, the same controlled way. Yeah. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, I really like this contrast between like this push and pull of like, I want people to be autonomous and prove themselves, but also at the same time, I want to control how this manifests. And like, I know there's part of it, and so also some people pointed out that like what Autonomy says about how Telsin is trying to appease her about this, and that this manufacturedness about it is more of Telsin's doing. But also like we are talking about the same god who deliberately cut off her own planet from the rest of the Cosmere, and who has apparently been just shoving scientific knowledge at Taldane, and who, like, even if you go back to the White Sand graphic novels, then Autonomy was involved by proxy in the whole, like, inciting incident of that series, because spoilers for White Sand, I guess.
Oh, no.
The reason one of the Sandmasters betrays the DM, the organization of Sandmasters, to the guys who then go killing them all, is because he sees a vision of the Sandlord, which is Autonomy's face in that particular culture.
Or an avatar or something.
So it's not like she is like this icon of everyone do what you want. She is still this heavily like control freak kind of person, which is I really love this duality in her.
It's interesting.
She's treating everyone like toddlers with giving them fake choices of, see, I'm going to let you choose these things, but you're still going to live within the parameters that I set because I'm the parent and you're just some little mortal.
That's a great analogy.
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking about the illusion of choice with my 4-month-old child last night while I was picking her onesie for the night. I was like, do you want this one? This one? And she's like cooing and cawing. And I'm like, I'm going to pick this one because it's all the same, because I don't know what you want, and this is an illusion of choice. You don't actually have choice.
Yeah, great analogy.
And I like this onesie the best. Well, it's also the nature of autonomy, too, to be, I want everyone to have autonomy, but if everyone has autonomy, that interferes with my autonomy to do whatever I want. And so it's like she wants everyone to have autonomy to an extent, but then her autonomy has to be paramount over that. One of the reasons why a shard like Autonomy may be divorced from the other shards that give it context makes it a problematic superpowered concept to throw out into the Cosmere.
Like every single other shard here, like it's just not great. But you need all of them together. We definitely go in a lot of detail on the history of Trell in our Trell episode, which was our last episode. So go check that out if you want to know. Don't forget, there was a random dude who was a foreman who's named Trell, who I forgot until we recorded that episode, gets a full page of like, hey, I'm a guy named Trell. Like, what?
I haven't watched that episode yet, so I don't know the conclusions you guys came to, but
No.
I'd like to think that the only reason that this guy is important is that Autonomy just happened to be watching and was like, okay, this one is going to my list of names that I can use on other planets. Just maybe she just keeps a notebook of like, okay, god ideas. What can we make a god here? Okay, Trell, I like the name. Snappy, easy to say. Will work in multiple languages. Let's keep that in the notebook.
Nice. Easy.
Most relatable thing about Autonomy, her list of names.
Look, if you're making that many avatars, you're just like, yo, that name, that was really autonomous. It's like, great name. Good 10 out of 10. I love it.
This just makes me super curious again about where her newest avatar is that she's referencing in
the Oathbringer letter?
Oathbringer.
Yeah.
No, I think we're definitely going to keep Autonomy the way Brandon has set her up. Could like be a villain. Like Odium is kind of like tied, I feel, as a villain to the Stormlight sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's so central there. Well, and not too into Stormlight spoilers, but yeah, he's very important and ingrained in that narrative. Whereas Autonomy can just kind of keep popping up like a recurring thing in multiple different ways, which is
kind
fun.
of Autonomy, because like the thing about Odium is that he is so central to what Stormlight is that if Stormlight does not end with the defeat of Odium, it's going to be not very satisfying. At least, I don't know. That's my opinion. Yeah. Whereas Autonomy is more like, she makes me think more of a comic book villain, like, I don't know, Doctor Doom maybe. Like yes, Doombot, so that works. So like you can have Doctor Doom like pop up here and there and go up against different characters and maybe occasionally even have him work with the superheroes because like it's his country that's in danger or whatever. So I think like Autonomy works in the sense that she's not tied to fighting specific superhero, specific group of characters on a specific planet.
Yeah, she could be fighting on the Aether planet and 5 other ones and be like, yeah, that makes sense, you know? So, Matt, you had some thoughts on Telsin as well in this book.
Yeah, well, this kind of flows, because obviously Telsin is set up to become the new avatar or the new holder of the avatar or new
I don't think
champion.
Trell actually existed, but we don't need to get into that detail. But like Telsin was going to become Trell, right?
Yeah. Take up the mantle, so to speak. Yeah. Telsin's an interesting villain because she doesn't do a lot in this book. Like, because Autonomy, I think, is the true villain. They make it pretty clear. And Telsin's just interesting because, like, to do the callback, like, Edwarn is the villain we've developed more, like, pathos and emotions around. over the course of the series. And then, of course, Brandon did the bait and switch in Bands of Mourning with Telsin. I did like, though, that they called back to the community as being Ed Warren's project. And it also kind of explained why the set is kind of messy. It's like, oh, they have this community, they have this bomb, they've got hemorrhagy. It's like, oh, it's because you had a bunch of too many cooks in the kitchen.
Well, and it's like the autonomy thing, right? Of like, I had this plan, right?
Yeah.
It's like they are all on tryouts for who's gonna be the trellest of trells.
Yeah, who's gonna be? Who has the best idea? I don't know. Let's try it out. Let's see. Yeah. We'll see.
And so the idea of the community is this like lost experiment that they didn't know what to do with anymore. It was kind of fun because people have been asking about the missing women since Alley of Law, and it's like maybe Brandon didn't know what to do with them either, and it's kind of a little meta, which is but Telsin, I did like that Brandon took care to kind of make some efforts to make her a foil to Wax and tie it back to their childhood, because they're both kind of these larger than life personalities. I also felt like he gave me some understanding of her character beyond, because like she is kind of the like cackling, I'm gonna end the world villain. Like she doesn't have a lot of characterization in this book, and it's
you're monologuing.
cliche.
Bye, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
but I did like her point about like Wax, like you think you're better than anyone and you can just like barrel in and fix things, but like I'm the one that actually thinks things through and plans, and yes, she's manipulating him, but her point about being like, you assume that the way I'm going about this is the wrong way, but you just learned about all this Trell stuff recently. Like, why don't you trust me that I've like thought through all this? And even though I don't agree with Telsin, obviously, and she is the villain, it's a fun, I don't know. I like that Brandon was able to slip some juice into her character.
Do you feel like Wax missed the opportunity to say, I don't know, maybe the problem is that you're aiming a weapon of mass destruction at my wife and children? Like, you can't just expect me to set aside this as personal. And really most of what she was doing was trying to distract him, because everything was already kind of in position and doing the thing. She's just trying to delay him long enough to get the bomb out of there.
Yep, exactly.
And I loved that twist that the bomb was on the warship, and we had the warship set up as a Chekhov's gun right when we came into Bilming. And even before that, I think they reference, Bilming has these new warships.
It was there was even a picture of it in the broadsheet in Bands of Mourning.
Sure was.
Yeah. And that's exactly how you deal with Wax, because you're not going to stop him, because he always comes back running. So how do you deal with Wax? You build him a track in a different direction than you want him to go, and then just try to keep him going.
That's what the doppelgangers
chasing other
are.
stuff.
They're just trying to waste time. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Hey, the
doppelgangers think they were supposed to kill them. No, you guys are just a delaying tactic.
Yeah.
The doppelgangers.
Oh my
gosh.
Oh, they were so fun. I really like the doppelgangers.
You did?
I'm glad
Let's talk about the doppelgangers briefly.
Okay. Go for it.
This one, Alla, do you want to start?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose since apparently I am in the minority here.
No, I don't know if that's true. Maybe the minority on the podcast, but not overall. I think most
here
people
in the
enjoy
sense
them.
of like in this assortment of 5 people. Okay, so I mentioned before how I was talking about Marvel and comic bookiness of it. It felt, especially part 1, there was something to me very comic booky, especially in the scene in the manor when they were all like meeting together, like it's their superhero lair of a superhero team. And the mirror matchup is such a not just a comic book trope, but it's such a comic book trope that I was really like, oh, this is what we're doing, this is fun. And also it like gets you the chance to pit the two protagonists against each other, but just by proxy, without any like idiotic let's make them enemies to fight.
That's true.
Like, I did not feel much for Duma, the guy who like mirrors Wax. because he also mirrors Wax's personality of not having much of a personality.
It's great mimicking, yeah.
But
Pretty
Gertrude, the anti Wayne, she was funny. Like, I don't know, I found her funny at least. Way she was trying so hard to mimic Wayne and somehow found only the annoying parts to copy.
I mean, I did find it funny how annoyed Wayne was by his own worst personality traits.
That was funny.
That was hilarious. But man, just okay, as messed up as Wayne is, Gertruda is like an order of magnitude more messed up for what she's trying to do. And I'm like, what kind of brainwashing did they put this poor woman through?
That's kind of me. Like, I don't love them. I liked them. I mostly just want to know more about them, and I wanted points of view from them and to just understand what was going on. And then we got like one paragraph right at the end where they both explained their motivations, and I was like, oh, that's potentially interesting. They're dead.
Oh yeah, rip.
Yeah, I wanted to see more of them too.
Well, yeah, if we explored their characters, yeah, I would like them more. I do agree. It's more that, like, in some sense, this book is messy. Like, there's a lot going on, and it's like, do we really need 5 different antagonists? Autonomy, Telsin, Gav, and the Doppelgangers. That's a lot. like that's kind of a lot. And indeed, hearing it's like, oh well, they're just here to waste time. Like, sure, but that doesn't make me like the book. It makes me feel like my time is being wasted in a sense. And it is not that bad. But can I read to you what Grace couldn't be on this one because she's recording our episode.
That one comment.
Tomorrow. And Grace said that this really crystallizes. I love this. Hilarious. There was a moment when reading this book when I thought, Brandon heard complaints about Wayne being annoying and Wax having no personality and decided to prove these people wrong by making these two. Love it.
I do love that comment.
It is really funny. Like,
it's great.
Dumad's doing great, though.
Yeah, there is something very meta about the Doppelgangers. I think in world, like, I didn't like them as I was reading because they didn't make sense to me. And I think at the end, when I was like, okay, the set's kind of messy as an organization because everyone's doing their own projects, I was like, okay, this is like someone's like scheme. I just felt it was a little like I got the powers thing, like the strategy of that made sense, but I was like, why are you wasting these resources teaching this poor woman to mimic accents? Like,
or like brainwashing her to want to do that.
Yeah,
and become
like
Wayne.
what practical element of that is?
I think it's just some idiot in the set thinking they had a good idea.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of idiots in that organization.
I just want more than they're dumb as their backstory. Like that's not super. Like I was like wondering, like, oh, are these like things created by Autonomy? It's like, no, they're just guys. They're just guys that are psyched. I'm like, I mean, okay. Like I feel like the Autonomy creating them rather than makes more sense to me. Like more like a Ray Shafir thing, kind of. You know, like we're like creating a quote.
Gertrude did have that one line where she's like, when you don't have anything in your life, you'll do anything to become someone else. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then again, she just died immediately.
It's fascinating. Very wrong, but fascinating.
Like the other thing, I think the reason why they were put in was for cool fight scenes. Because Telsin, even though she has a lot of powers, apparently, that we didn't really get to see her use, but she's not concerned confronting all 3 of them. That
would have been cool.
Yeah, but Telsin, though, like, she's not the type of villain. I don't think a fight, like, she's not a combatant villain. Like, her archetype is like the mastermind, right? So I don't think having like a big Wax and Telsin fight would have been that satisfying. It was more satisfying him like figuring out that she was stalling him and then like, you know, beating her plan. So I think, Brant, like there needs to be some cool fight scenes. And so we need some like fun Allomancer, Twinborn, Hemalurgist enemies. And this is what we came up with to give some cool fight scenes.
I get it.
Yeah, I did really like the point where Wax baits her into a villain monologue and then just goes floop.
It's pretty good.
That's like, yes, that is hilarious.
Like,
or when Wayne stalled out the speed bubble and then Wax was able to like shoot them up.
Like there were definitely
cool.
some cool moments. I think maybe it's just the concept, and like if you're like that sounds fun, and I'm like that sounds incredibly stupid, and like I think that's the difference where I'm just like, well, yeah, obviously the more experienced people with the powers are gonna win. Like, yeah, I knew this page one of when they showed up, and so that's why they weren't very threatening or compelling, and so it was more annoying than fun to me, right?
I think it's true. There was low stakes in all of the doppelganger fights because they weren't the big bad. Like I knew the doppelgangers weren't going to kill one of our main characters, so it was pretty clear. It was like this is a chance to do cool stuff, and I'm not gonna like it's not like Vin escaping from the Inquisitors in the Final Empire, right? Like there, even though I knew logically, oh, like Vin's not gonna die at this point, she's the main character, like I was scared for her, whereas I was never scared for Wax and Wayne like fighting these doppelgangers.
No, I just found them fun. Like I admit that on a very low level of no thoughts, just vibes, I just really vibed with the idea of them.
That's fine.
But like I like the idea that the reason they exist is that someone in a set had an idea they could not, get rid of. It's like it's another point in what you all were saying about how set is kind of a mess as a secret organization because everyone is so aggressively doing their own thing. And to be honest, that's kind of a thing, like, isn't every secret organization in the Cosmere some level of a mess? Because, like, you have the set having this, you have, like, Ghostbloods are...
Ghostbloods.
The Scadrian chapter is organized, but they apparently completely lost control of whatever is going on with Rasarr. And you have, like, on Rasarr, you have the Sons of Honor who are just completely falling apart at the seams.
They're done. They're literally done at this point.
Yeah. You have the Skybreakers, whose boss is like probably clinically insane, and also they got themselves into working for Odium. You have the 17th Shard that is not only aggressively pacifistic, but apparently accidentally brought Common Cold into Rasarr. So just the Cosmere has just really bad luck with secret societies. Like, they are all a complete mess.
I feel like that, though, is very true to life because people are a complete mess. And the more people you put into a secret society, the messier it's going to get.
Especially in like a conspiracy sense. It's like, oh, yeah, this is not going to go well, ultimately.
I guess there's something refreshing about, like, there are so many stories about those perfect conspiracies that work out perfectly and everyone is on board. And then you have the Cosmere where every conspiracy secret society in the Cosmere is in some level completely falling apart at the seams.
Which is exactly what they really do in real life.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
I get that. I just wish the set was more intimidating. And in this book, they kind of didn't. Like, Autonomy was, right? Like, Autonomy totally was. But, like, the set, not really. And that's just kind of disappointing to me. You know?
Well, if they come in our next season of Diceborn, I'm sure I'll still be very intimidated by them. Because
you got a lot to play with.
Are at stake.
Yeah, no, I won't go into Diceborn spoilers, but it's been interesting reading this book after Diceborn was filmed, and there's definitely some echoes there, which were not intentional.
No, not at all.
Also noticing echoes with my own roleplay characters, but none of you even know who they are. But
yeah.
think I didn't like the Doppelgangers at first, but what saves them for me, I think, is this meta level of realizing I really like what Brandon has done with this series in terms of genre, where we have a Western, a kind of Sherlock Holmesy, like typical like serial killer hunting like murder mystery. We have a like almost Indiana Jones, like early fantasy, and now we have like early sci-fi. And if you've done like any like turn of the century sci-fi fantasy reading, like these are the types of books that people were writing in these genres at their kind of inception. So I do like that element. And so like Rasarr was saying, I think a lot of the comic book conventions coming in are likely also like the Doppelgangers are ridiculous. And I think that's why people don't like them, because they're ridiculous. But
the reason why they do like them, right?
Yeah, or they like them because they're funny, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's intentional, because I think Brandon with these books is also experimenting and playing with genre. And in this one, yeah, like Telsin is very much a comic book, like James Bond villain, right? Like she's on the top of the tower with her big doomsday device.
True. Yeah.
And like even like the Ghost Bloods being like aliens, and they're fighting an alien invasion with the Men of Red and Gold, like, and also like the really busy plot with like 50 different things and the people in the bunker. Like these are all very like well known and established conventions of the genre. So I was glad that Brandon kind of continued that pattern he established with the first three books of that kind of evolution and progression.
Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I still don't think I can quite grasp exactly what genre this is, but I was like, I guess I kind of get it. It's a little harder to distill it down in this book.
Yeah, like I think the way I would do it, I think it's a similar era of sci-fi fantasy to Bands of Mourning, but I think Bands of Mourning leads more into the fantasy conventions, whereas this really leads into the like sci-fi / like comic book conventions.
Interesting.
Is how I'd divide the two.
Makes me wonder if in the next era where we get comic books, they're gonna like kind of riff on some of this. Oh, the issue where Wax and Wayne fight their doppelgangers. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I admit that would be pretty funny to see. Yeah.
A 1980s Mistborn character reading a comic book where the set, or if instead of the broadsheets, they do like comic book pages and like the sets are like
that's
the antagonist.
I swear I remember hearing something about that. This is what they're planning to do for Era 3 instead of broadsheets.
That is a thing.
The comic book pages.
And they're going to be Wax and Wayne. Yeah, that's a thing.
I'm going to love that. That is going to be brilliant.
Okay, yeah.
So like to add to what you were saying about genres, there are also genres that really fit the time period that this era is emulating, because this is like late 19th century, but also early 20th century. Mm-hmm. So you get the Western story of the sort that would be written. Mm-hmm. A criminal story, like this is the period of time that Sherlock Holmes existed in. The adventure story, like I wouldn't say Indiana Jones, but like those stories that were popular in the late 19th century, like of the Englishmen who go to visit I'm terribly sorry, the dark Africa to find the
adventures,
treasure.
The very problematic things like that, but that was the thing. Yeah.
There was one I was reading at the same time as Bands of Mourning by Edgar Allan Poe, where they go to Antarctica basically and find a secret civilization that kind of resembled the Malwish.
That's really funny.
And it's okay. That novel's funny because Edgar Allan Poe famously hated novels and thought short stories were the best. And there's a theory that he wrote that novel to prove that novels are awful. Which is like,
I really want to read this now.
Kind of an Edgar Allan Poe thing to do.
Okay, but also like the Lost Metal. This is the early 20th century. That's not quite yet birth of comic book superheroes, but you already have those characters like Dick Tracy or the Spirit, who were mostly like comic strips and radio characters. So it makes sense that in this book where we are moving from steampunk to more of a diesel punk setting, this is where we get the pseudo superhero and the old-timey alien invasion sort of story.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. And for the 1980s series, we're setting up the Cold War era with the
Very
Malwish and the Elendil Basin.
Mm-hmm. Give me that.
You know, like that's pretty clearly set up here. So
that's why we gotta have a Ghostblood agent doing Ghostbloody things in a Cold War thing. That'll be so good.
I just see this as Kelsier very carefully trying to manage both sides because he has an in on both of them. That they don't necessarily agree that it's the same person, which is hilarious.
That's funny.
And so he can totally play this whole situation like a fiddle if he does it well.
Because he's trying to like make technological progress, and strife breeds that, right?
Mm-hmm. This is exactly the sort of situation that will shoot progress, off the charts on both sides. And then he's just like, all right, so I just got to ride this wave and then figure out, once they're advanced enough, figure out how to get them to not be enemies anymore. And that'll be the challenge.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
And I guess just a final comment on the genre thing. What I like about it, too, is that it plays into the DNA of Mistborn as a series, because like the original trilogy was also playing with conventions and genre with the whole like reversal of the prophesied hero. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes me think that's going to be a thing that Brandon has kind of tied to Scadrial, and we might keep seeing him playing with that concept in different ways in future eras.
That's cool.
So
cool. Why don't we blab a little bit about some Era 3 predictions? What's next for our friends on Scadrial?
I have predictions all the way to Space Age.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Because this is your grand theory. Yes?
Yes, my grand theory of Mistborn. It's not very grand, but it is a theory.
Okay.
So I think this book is setting up a lot of what's going to happen in the future of Adriel. Starting with the fact that obviously we just had Autonomy withdraw her Men of Gold and Red, which is kind of awkward as far as names of evil armies go, but that's what we have. So, and we also have the setup of the Cold War, and I think the next trilogy of Mistborn is going to start as this Cold War between North and South that's threatening to go hot. And at some point, it's going to transition into an alien invasion story.
Oh, yes.
Like full on, like full scale, because this is also like, this is meant to be the 1980s, which I'm not entirely versed in like history of American culture, but I'm pretty sure that was a high point for like alien invasion stories. So speaking of talking about genre conventions, we will be in prime time for some Roswell alien sightings, cryptic conspiracies, Men in Black, alien invasion stories.
I want that so bad. Do you know how much I want that? I don't know how we're going to fit all this into 3 books, especially with like Discord stuff. But Cold War and alien invasion, I've always wanted a Cosmere alien invasion story. So give me that. I need that.
Yes, I think this is going to have repercussions because this will be a schedule as the whole civilization's first contact with alien life. And what they are going to learn is that non-Scadrians are dangerous and threatening and not to be trusted, and we need to protect ourselves, which I think is then going to lead to Scadrian being a space military power. Like they are going to go into space, not with the idea of Star Trek, like to boldly go and let's see what's out there, because they already know what's out there. It's alien invaders. So they are going to go with, we are going out there knife first. I think there's also the second part, and it's actually Ghost Bloods, because like we kind of mentioned it, that Kelsier apparently just let, or maybe had by accident, the Ghost Bloods run completely amok on Rasarr and basically working with people who are audio at multiple points and trying to kill one of the local gods. That was also a thing. And the problem is that the people who are aware of them are also some of the biggest power players on Rasarr right now. So I think this will also lead to this setup where on Scadrial, the Ghostbloods are the good guys, the people who helped us defeat the alien invaders, whereas on Rasarr, the Ghostbloods are the alien invaders in a way, just a more subtle version than Voidbringers or whatever Autonomy has cooking.
The meddling aliens meddling in our stuff and get out. And yeah.
Yeah, they're more like, if Autonomy is more like the alien invaders and Ghostbloods on Rasarr are more like the reptilians.
I do love how some of what Kelsier has been doing to try to protect Scadrial is going to come around and bite him in the butt later.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I 100% believe Brandon is totally setting us up to just tear our hearts to shreds with this big knockdown, drag out war between Scadrial and Rasarr. Yeah. And we're like, but no, we love you both. Please don't fight. And they're gonna, and it's gonna be
kill Sazed.
Yeah, terrible. I think this is like what's going to happen is like, because Scadrial is going to space with the idea that space is where alien invaders who want to murder us all are, whereas Rasarr is going to space with the idea of space is where those meddling forces who want to manipulate us are, and those two groups are kind of almost destined to be hostile to each other just on the basis of the assumptions they go with. So I think like this whole book is setting up the Cold War with a chance of going hot, not just between South and North, but also Scadrial and Rasarr.
Yes, I love all of this. And that's a great point about the Ghostbloods. That like, oh no, this is gonna go so badly when these societies mix, because they will remember, no, the Ghostbloods, screw you guys. And Kelsier is a prominent person there. No, get out. I hate you so much.
Yeah, and it's going to be beautiful because we're going to have this full-scale war where we have sympathies towards both sides. And I mean, it just really highlights how that's usually the situation in most conflicts. And it's just like,
delicious.
No, Brandon, why you got to make this so real?
Delicious.
And meanwhile, the Sellish are just off to the side, just vibing.
Just vibing.
Just watching. What are they doing over there?
Yeah. Maybe they'll be involved too.
You know?
We're just hiding behind the door over here. You can't find us.
Nope.
We're safe-ish.
Other predictions.
I mean, I kind of 100% agree with about everything that Allah has said. That is totally where we're going and totally what's going to happen. And every single book we are going to devour, and it's going to make things much more clear that this is going to get sticky and it's going to get more tangled and more problems and all of this. And no matter who wins, we're all going to lose and we're all going to eat it up with a spoon.
Yes. Other Era 3 thoughts?
I don't really have predictions. I don't predict things very often.
Okay, this sounds good. No worries.
I'd like to see, and I think Brandon's setting us up a bit, a return of full Mistborn or a full Mistborn in some capacity. I think the way Brandon has been writing the Wax fight scenes shows some elements of him missing full Mistborn like combat. That's, I think, one of my main things I miss about the action sequences in Era 2 is I'm like, but like full Mistborn are so cool. Like, you know, like it's all, yeah. So I think, I don't know how that's accomplished necessarily, but I think that would be a cool, and you kind of have them talking about this, whether it's through finding Lerasium or Hemorrhagy or breeding programs. Everyone in Era 2, there's a bunch of people working on the problem of how do we get Mistborn back. So I think that would make sense. It would be fun to play more with the prophecies. So if we're getting some Discord elements, I also think since this is Era 2 is more of a bridging era, I think I'm predicting Era 3 will have some big shakeup with the shards. So whether that means Sazed is out of the picture and there's a new vessel or vessels, or they get shattered, or it's still Sazed, but there's a different arrangement. I feel like there has to be some sort of like on the same level of Ati and Lyris dying and Sazed taking up both. I think there needs to be a similar level of kind of shardic transformation at the end of Era 3. And yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun with some modern technology and allomancy.
I'm really excited for Era 3, though. That's what this book made me want. It's like, I want this now. Oh, please. So good.
Yeah.
And the good news is we won't need to wait a decade for that. So that's a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Because he's going to write those when he's done Stormlight 5, right?
Yeah, back to
plan?
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Elantra sequels, too. I don't know. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
How about we wrap with just some final thoughts, if there were some final awesome moments from the book that still stick out in your brain? Rosemary.
I got two things now.
Perfect.
One, I am 100% vindicated on my years and years and years and harping on aluminum. And finally, yes, someone has been using electrolysis and it's responsible for half the aluminum in the basin, even though people don't know it is great. I love it. And I want more. And yes, aluminum is going to be so many problems and it's going to be awesome.
That's a really good point. That's going to change schedule a lot, for sure.
Oh, like crazy. And the other thing is, I really do love what Wayne's last will and testament did with the constant pranks being pulled on his friends. That is just like one of the most beautiful things a person can do to still make their presence felt even when they're gone. Because having lost good friends, I lost one in the last little over a year, and to know that reminder is there and that it's just going to keep going. And I want to see it even going into Era 3 when we have elderly Marasi and they're advising, and every once in a while something pops up and you're just like, damn it, Wayne.
That would be really funny.
Happening decades and decades because he has set that up to just keep going. That would just make me so freaking happy. That
what if that turns into a secret organization by the time Era 4 is, and it's just like the secret society just based off of Wayne's shenanigans?
Nonsense.
That'd be hilarious.
Watch it get hijacked by Whimsy very quickly.
Oh, ooh, these are some good thoughts here. I actually really like this.
There is definitely a solo video that I need to have ready in the next few months.
Ooh,
anyway,
excellent.
You know what I'm talking about, even if you don't remember.
No, I don't. Oh, right. Oh, yes. No, I do. I do remember now.
Yes.
We know what you're doing to us when you're dead.
What?
Well,
because you think this idea is very beautiful.
I'm not Wayne, but
yeah. Yeah. Good idea. Wayne Secret Society. You know what? I kind of dig it. Let's go.
I admit my mind went not so much to a secret society and more like, this is basically like what the Nobel Prize is, just instead of scientific achievements, it's crime posting.
Nice.
Thinking more like Band of School Kids starts mimicking this, but that works too.
Other final thoughts, top scenes that you hadn't gotten mentioned.
I just so love everything with Autonomy, and I'm still like as a final thought. I just realized, what happened to Telsin at the end? Because the last time we see her, she died.
She died.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I remember Harmony saying that if she's sustained only by Autonomy, but it was kind of like offhanded, so I wasn't sure if she just fell into a coma or if she actually just died.
Yeah, in the epilogue, they find her body and it's turned gray, which is
that's actually really interesting. Yeah,
that's really interesting.
I forgot that.
And she has a message carved into her arm with her fingernails. From Autonomy.
I do feel like she got just so heavily invested that her synapses fried or something, and when the power pulled out of her, there was nothing left.
Well, and there's also the Chris's notes in the Ars Arcana about hemalurgy changing. And so I think the other thing is, I think Telsin went beyond the limit of what modern hemalurgy could do, and was only able to do that with autonomies.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Support.
Interesting.
And then, so I think as soon as autonomy withdrew the support, like Telsin just couldn't survive with the number of spikes.
Her spirit web collapsed.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, on like a second related thought, the fact that autonomy can possess people, I think like people who have Trellium spikes, or like I'm not entirely clear on the rules of what lets her possess people, but it's very creepy, and I hope we will have like a scene I want to see in Era 3, or maybe later, is autonomy using the body of one of the like side characters to talk to the main character. Like this is how one of the side characters dies, just as being the puppet to autonomy, not used to like, not the same way like Marsh was used by Ruin, but just like, as a way to send a message.
Just like on and off, this is something they occasionally have to deal with.
I was thinking like permanently, like this is how you find out this character died. Like, okay, this is something
really horrible and traumatizing. I hope it happens.
Okay, but this is
perfect. I love it.
When Brandon occasionally does body horror, and it's very fun. But like the scene, I'm thinking like, imagine you have this beloved side character who's just always around helping the main crew of Era 3, and then they just go missing. And there's a chunk of the book devoted to finding them. And when they do find it, it turns out they are now taken over by autonomy and just, you know, a mouthpiece for autonomy. I think that would be a fun reveal.
That'd be cool.
Okay, I was imagining a different kind of horror entirely.
Oh, like on and off, like demonic possession in more like classic demonic possession.
Kind of like that, where this person just like slowly loses themselves or slowly has to fight against this. And it's this very like resigned thing. I don't know. That's what I had in my head.
My one problem with it is that I'm not really clear on if the people that autonomy talks through are still like able to, if they are still there, because like everybody that we saw autonomy speak through has, you know, expired shortly after. Like the faceless immortal that took out Edward like blew himself up along with Edward, and the body in the carriage just expired from its wounds. And Telsin was never really like fully possessed, so
I guess I really liked I liked the little bit we got of Milan, would have liked more. I really, really liked Marasi. I liked the hemalurgic horrors, getting those again. I thought those were always a fun element. Yeah, very, very briefly. And yeah, like overall, this book was very fun, which is what ultimately I'm looking for in a Mistborn book. So,
Kadie?
I think that's about it.
Awesome. Well, this episode was a lot. We talked about a lot of things, and it's always interesting on reactions, us doing 3 of them. What are we going to talk about? We'll find out. Some crossover, but others not so much. But let's head on over to Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Rasarr.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw. Welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where we send 5 clues in a character to wtcc at 17shard.com. I read each clue aloud, and after each clue, these guys have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. All right, this first one is sent from Ashes AE, who is a Herald on Patreon, but this was a regularly submitted one. I'm not a Herald priority queue, but I recognize their name. Clue 1. This character is politically important.
Dalinar?
It's not Dalinar. Every Brandon Sanderson main character.
Probably no Lost Metal characters. Like, no one
I
lost metal
mean,
spoilers, right?
that you
Seems
can
unlikely.
assume our queue is big. Yeah.
Yes.
How about
Okay.
that? Though this one is from May 2022. How about that? So, we're picking them somewhat randomly from the email, not really in order.
It's so many people.
So many people, and apparently a lot of spam in the email box of this. So I imagine.
I'm talking about with this character is politically important. That's
sorry.
So many
Okay.
people.
I'm going to do a classic and say Shanalariel.
It's not Shanalariel. Nice.
Serene.
It's not Serene.
Elend,
It's not Elend.
which I knew it wouldn't be, but
Clue 2. This character has no POVs.
okay.
That's a helpful clue.
King who is Sarini's father.
No, it is not Aventeo. I like that though.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got you. That's a perfectly sufficient, clear description. Love it.
Elhokar?
It's not Elhokar.
Does Elhokar have a viewpoint?
I don't think he does.
No,
Remember.
no.
I didn't think he
I'll-
did.
I'll go with Yeoman.
It's not Yeoman. I like that too.
Gavinor, because you don't have to, like, be doing things to be important necessarily.
True. Okay. No. Clue 3. This character died off screen.
How about Nohadon?
It is Nohadon. Good job.
Nice.
I really like Clue 4. Like, I really dig this one. This one's really good. Clue 4 is this character traveled a great distance. And the 5th one is this character is from Rasarr. It is Nohadon. What a cute one. I love it. Because he was very politically important. I hope we get some answers for that in Stormlight 5. What's going on with him?
Yeah.
All right. This one is sent from Patrick. And he's a longtime guesser, but first time clue giver. Awesome. Clue 1. This character appears in more than one book. I guess I'll say book/story. How about that? What is a book? His novellas are books, really. So,
Vasher.
not Vasher.
Kelsier?
It's not Kelsier.
Boyd.
It's not Hoyd. Gotta get the low-hanging fruit here.
Vin,
It's not Vin.
because she's in all 3 books in a trilogy.
Yeah. No, that
Yeah,
totally counts.
yeah.
That totally counts.
She appears at the end of Secret History too.
That's true. Good point. Clue 2. This character is alive at time of submission, which is post Rhythm of War, pre-Lost Metal. Nice. We figured out that it's pre-Lost Metal, but yes. Post Rhythm of War is actually probably a useful piece of information. Our queue is not that long. I think we're past 2020. I haven't seen one of those for a while.
Lift?
It's not Lift.
Felt.
It's not Felt.
Galadon.
No, it is not Galadon.
Because he's been in.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, that totally applies for the clues. And I don't think he died off screen, so
That we know of, anyway.
not that we know of.
Chris?
It's not Chris. Clue 3. This character is sworn to keep a secret.
Now I'm like going through all the Ghostblood characters, and then I remember this is before the Lost Metal.
Mhm.
Naz.
It is not Naz.
When you say more
Allik?
than,
It is not Kalak.
so when you say more than one book/story, that can mean different books in the same series,
I
right?
would say so. I
Okay.
would interpret it that way, yeah. That seems like the sensible reading of that clue.
Yeah, that language is twigging something for me. But I'm not like quite making the connection. I feel like one of the books ended with someone being like, oh, like they've promised to keep my secret for now, but we'll see what happens.
Sorry, I
I'll
just
go
really enjoyed the delivery of that. Yes?
Yeah.
I'll go with Shallan because I'm sure she's keeping someone's secret.
I
even if
imagine so,
yeah.
but it's not Shalon.
Yeah.
I guess I have to pick someone. I'm gonna go with. This is hard, you guys.
We know. And I already guessed Vasher.
I'm gonna
So
go with
then you-
Adolin.
It's not Adolin. Clue 4. This character can see more than other characters can.
I was going to ask if you could repeat the clues so far.
The clues so far. Okay, yeah, cool. Clue 1. This character appears in more than one book. This character is alive at time of submission, so post further before. This character is sworn to keep a secret. And clue 4. This character can see more than other characters can. Did you have
I'm
a guess?
guessing Marsh then.
It's not Marsh.
Sazed?
It's not Sazed.
Rock?
It's not Rock.
Cultivation?
It's not Cultivation. Clue 5. This character's homeland contains a perpendicularity.
Cord?
It is Cord. You are so
The
close.
second I guessed Rock, I was like, I should have guessed Cord.
Yeah. And the secret is the Dawn Shard with Risen, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Nicely done.
That is totally the ending I was thinking of when I was thinking
Oh,
about,
yeah, really?
like everyone will just, I'm pretty sure that.
I don't know if it was that exact quote the way you did it, but but I get.
Yeah, no, I didn't have it exactly right, but I knew there was something where people were like, oh, like this can't get out, or like, and it was because Risen's a Dawn. Yeah, Risen being a Dawn Shard. Yeah.
And to close things out, we have our Who's That Cosmere character priority queue. You can support our Patreon. Well, you can support our Patreon for as little as $1. But if you want your Who's That Cosmere characters read in less than a year, then solidly support our Who's That Cosmere character priority queue by being a herald on Patreon for $10 a month. Wow. And help support us make all this content, because there's a lot of it. All right, this one is sent from Little Dagger. Clue 1, this character is enthusiastic.
Sil.
It's not Sil. Rip. I'm counting you both.
Oh.
It's both your guess. Rip.
Oh, I'm blanking. Rushu.
It's not Rushu. Love Rushu, though.
Rua.
It's not Rua. Clue 2. This character is often forgetful.
Teravangian.
It is not Teravangian. I like that, though. Is he enthusiastic?
Yes.
Very enthusiastic about killing those fire children.
He's enthusiastic about saving the world.
Yeah, okay. I just wouldn't put that at the top of my list of descriptors for him.
Oh, God. The only character I can think of is from one of the unpublished books.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's unfortunate.
Too many of the secret projects in my brain. It's like, no, wait, I can't. I got to push that out of my way and dig in deeper.
I know.
Trying to think of all my lovable airheads of the Cosmere.
Oh, let's go with, I don't know. Pattern is very enthusiastic, but I don't know that.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Is,
it's tricky, isn't it?
Maybe he was at first before he had all of his cognition together. So yeah, sure. What the heck? I'll just throw Pattern out of the way.
Oh, I like that guess, but it's not Pattern.
Shallan?
It's not Shallan. It's a good guess too.
I don't know. Let's say Dalinar.
It's not Dalinar.
Throwing something out there.
There are certain definitions of forgetful.
Yeah,
that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Well, no, that's what I was going
for certain
off
definitions of enthusiastic during certain times of his
enthusiastic. Like when he's with the Trell.
Clue 3. It's still not Dalinar, but this character is considered dangerous.
Dangerous, forgetful, and enthusiastic. What a combo.
Nightblood.
It is Nightblood.
We both said it.
Yeah, I do think you both said it. Yes, it is
we
Nightblood.
said it exactly at the same time.
Very good. Yeah, I heard it like at the exact same time.
Yeah, good one.
Very good. Yeah, it's like what Venn diagram, and it's like exclusively Nightblood. Clue 4 is this character hopped worlds, and clue 5, this character often loses track of time. Which I think those were very nice clues that like weren't hyper specific, but were useful. I think that's a well crafted one. I appreciate that.
No, I like the like character aspects. Like saying like personality traits, because it does narrow in, but not in the way like we're used to kind of narrowing in with like, do they have powers or not? What planet are they from?
Yeah.
or plot elements, whereas like that's like, okay, which characters are enthusiastic?
And I think, though, I think the personality trait ones, it can be dicey on if people agree. I think everyone
That's
can
true.
agree Knifelet's very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
That checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the forgetful one was good too, because
Mhm.
that's such like a quirk
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Not,
And
well, I
then-
guess, yeah. I
And
was
then
like, is it
dangerous, and then the light bulb. You could almost see the moment where the light bulb
Nice.
pops up above
Love
my
it.
head.
All right, everyone. You can chat about the Lost Metal and all your news discussion series and fun that you could ever want on 17shard.com. We have a very active Discord server with a lot going on. And there's a lot of podcasts still to come here. This is our last reactions episode. So I think after this, then we're going to have our Harmony Discord episode this weekend, I'm pretty sure. And then we'll be back to weekly for a bit, which is good, because I don't know why I signed myself up to do 2 things a week for a bit, but that's what happened. Hey. And so come join us in Discord, chat with our stuff, leave a comment below. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can support our Patreon for as little as $1 if you like our stuff. And see you all next time.
Bye.
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 Caw.